Chapter 1888. Wine again? Okay, let's continue. As Lin Yi said this, he pushed the 2 bottles of erguotu on the table over. Ha, this time Bai Weitua and I will drink. I say Bai Weitua, you won't let him drink for you, right? When Zhang Duopan saw that Lin Yi still wanted to drink for him, his face changed slightly. His alcohol tolerance wasn't as good as Fan Ganha. Even if he drank water, he didn't have the confidence to win. After all, Lin Yi drank alcohol as fast as he drank water. Brother Lin, let me do it this time, Bai Weitua said. Ha, alright, then I'll give it to you. Lin Yi pushed the 2 bottles of white wine over. Seeing that Lin Yi gave up, Zhang Duopan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. He picked up the erguotu in front of him and opened the bottle cap. He thought, this Zhang Duopan is quite amazing. He replaced the inside with water, and the bottle cap on the outside is still intact. There is no flaw at all. What a talent. If Lin Yi and Bai Weitua were suspicious, they wouldn't be able to see anything wrong. However, although Zhang Duopan thought so, Fan Ganha's face changed. He clearly remembered that the bottle of erguotu near Zhang Duopan should have been opened. It was impossible to be newly opened. Could it be that there was a problem? In contrast, Bai Weitua was a bit puzzled. Why does my bottle of erguotu seem to be opened and closed again? Could it be that I encountered the legendary mixture of a few bottles of leftover wine? But erguotu is very cheap. It's not worth it, right? As he was wondering in his heart, Bai Weitua suddenly felt his feet being kicked twice. When he turned his head, he saw Lin Yi's comforting smile. Bai Weitua's heart brightened. Could it be that Lin Yi did something? Bai Weitua quickly poured the erguotu in front of him into the disposable paper cup, and he found something unusual. Although this erguotu also had the smell of alcohol, it wasn't strong. It was just a faint smell. Could it be? Bai Weitua was excited. He didn't know how Lin Yi did it. But Lin Yi must have done something to it. Otherwise, how could he have hinted at her? On the other side, Zhang Duopan also poured some wine. But after he did so, he was dumbfounded. What kind of mineral water was this? It was clearly erguotu. The smell of alcohol was strong. Zhang Duopan frowned. Could it be that Fan Ganha didn't understand what he meant? What the hell was this guy doing? But at this moment, he definitely couldn't open his mouth to ask. If he did, wouldn't everyone know that he wanted to cheat? Therefore he could only bite the bullet and raise his glass. Bai Weitua. Come on. This time Miwe will be the judge again. Although the liquor was not changed to water, Zhang Duopan thought that Bai Weitua was definitely not as good as him. Although this bottle of white wine was a bit too much for him, it was still better than Bai Weitua. Sure. Come on. Bai Weitua, on the other hand, was full of confidence. If he couldn't beat her in drinking water, he might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Fan Ganha wanted to say something, but he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he didn't say it because he didn't know what to say. He looked at Bai Weitua's excited look and guessed that his erguotu with mineral water was probably in Bai Weitua's hands. However, Fan Ganha was very puzzled. He clearly put the bottle of mineral water in front of Fan Ganha, but how did it run to Bai Weitua? He didn't understand. The bottle was pushed by Lin Yi at that time, but Lin Yi shouldn't know the hidden story behind it. Moreover, when Lin Yi pushed the bottle, he was also watching closely. How could Lin Yi have the chance to switch? 3, 2, 1. Start. Meiwe had already shouted the slogan. Bai Weitua and Zhang Duopan raised their wine glasses at the same time. Compared to Bai Weitua, who drank the wine in one gulp, Zhang Duopan was in much more pain. He drank the wine several times, but he finally drank it. After drinking it, he looked at the empty wine glass in front of Bai Weitua in shock. You finished drinking? Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weitua's calm face and hesitated. Yeah, I finished drinking. Bai Weitua smiled, but he was a little guilty. I don't want the other party to find out that I drank mineral water. This is strange. Zhang Duopan thought. Is this Bai Weitua also pretending to be weak? Why does it look like he didn't drink after drinking? However, he couldn't do anything about it. He could only say, okay, then let's continue. He filled the glass again. There was no doubt that Bai Weitua won. This made Zhang Duopan's face a little bad. He was also bare-chested, but his figure wasn't as good as Fan Ganha's. His bulging belly was exposed. The third glass was naturally Bai Weitua's victory. This time Zhang Duopan was completely desperate. Why did my strength become my weakness when it came to the other party? Before Fan Ganha lost, he could understand. After all, this method of competition was proposed by Lin Yi. Without confidence, Lin Yi wouldn't have proposed this method of competition. However, Bai Weitua's worried expression was seen by Zhang Duopan. Could it be? Zhang Duopan picked up Bai Weitua's wine bottle. Although the remaining wine wasn't enough to fill a glass, there was still enough left. Zhang Duopan directly poured it into his own glass. He picked it up and smelled it. Suddenly he revealed a look of realization. Bai Weiduo was shocked. He cheated and Zhang Duopan caught him in the act. Wouldn't he Meiwa look down on him? If he lost, it was because he wasn't strong enough. But cheating was another matter. Just as Bai Weiduo was very nervous, afraid that Zhang Duopan would reveal the truth, Zhang Duopan put the wine bottle on the table with a gloomy face. He said indifferently, "Brother Bai is really courageous. I admire you. I concede defeat." Bai Weiduo looked at Zhang Duopan in confusion. "What's wrong with this guy? Why didn't he expose me? He didn't see it?" In fact, it wasn't that Zhang Duopan didn't want to expose him, but he couldn't. This wine was Fangan's doing. Even if he exposed it, it would mean that Bai Weiduo cheated. He would be the one who wanted to cheat first. At that time, Meiwa would look down on him even more. So no matter what, Zhang Duopan could only pinch his nose and admit defeat. Xinyan covered her mouth with a smile. Lin Yi didn't disappoint her. She knew from the train that Lin Yi was very skillful, or the scammer's money wouldn't have ended up in Lin Yi's pocket. This time, Lin Yi must have used the same trick, swapping the bottle of Erguo in front of Bai Weiduo without anyone noticing. Bai Weiduo didn't think that he'd win just like that. Yes, it really was a mystery. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1889. Bai Weiduo thought that if he had known this, he would have made the bet with Zhang Duopan. Whoever lost had to stay away from Meiwa. Okay, let's continue. The competition is over. Zhang Duopan, do you understand now? There's always someone stronger than you and there's always someone stronger than you? Meiwa looked at Zhang Duopan's defeated look and shook her head helplessly. She hated Zhang Duopan's arrogant attitude the most. She felt good that he was defeated. Zhang Duopan's face darkened. He was unconvinced. Yes, he lost unjustly. He could have won, but Fangan had ruined it. He didn't know that it was Lin Yi's trick. If he knew, he wouldn't be so angry. But now, he thought that he accidentally messed it up, so he was very depressed. When he heard Meiwa say this, he felt that he couldn't lose face in front of Bai Weiduo, so he straightened his neck and said, "Let's do it this way. Drinking is just a small thing. It's not a serious competition. If you want to compete, let's have a big competition." Oh. Bai Weiduo won the drinking competition, so he was full of confidence. At this time, he naturally wouldn't be weak. How about this? During the freshman party, we'll each put up a performance. Whoever's performance gets the highest ranking wins, and the loser will voluntarily give up on Meiwa. What do you think? Zhang Duopan risked being scolded by Meiwa and used her as a wager again. Of course, he had a reason for doing this. Bai Weiduo had just won, and now his ego was inflated. If he made such a request again, Bai Weiduo might be hot-headed and agree. At that time, even if Meiwa said something, it would be useless. A man should not go back on his words. Zhang Duopan had more reason to push him. Although Bai Weiduo drank water. In order to make it more realistic, Fangan asked the waiter to leave some wine in the bottle. This was nothing to Zhang Duopan. But Bai Weiduo was a little drunk. Hearing Zhang Duopan's words, he immediately said boldly, "Okay, let's compete. Who's afraid of who?" Bai Weiduo had some confidence in his singing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be singing duets with Meiwa as soon as he arrived, because this was his strength. He always went on stage during the school's art festival. He had won first place in the solo competition before, so he wasn't afraid of Zhang Duopan at all. Good, a gentleman's word. Zhang Duopan was overjoyed and quickly said, "I won't take back my words." Bai Weiduo said, "That's a good idea. I'm talking about each of us coming up with a program. I'm not talking about going on stage personally. In other words, as long as I'm the one who planned and participated in this program, it's fine." Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weiduo proudly. Wasn't this guy full of confidence? He didn't mind giving him a blow to lower his morale. So what? Bai Weiduo also knew that Zhang Duopan was playing a word game. One person coming up with a show and one person performing a show were two different things. Coming up with a show could be a show that everyone completed together. As long as he participated, it would be fine. But one person performing, it would be one person. However, Bai Weiduo couldn't take back his words, so he could only bite the bullet and say it. "Okay, Meiwa, this time he volunteered, and it's not like I'm hurting him. Brother Bai's voice is not bad. Maybe he can really get a good result?" Zhang Duopan said with a smile. Meiwa shook her head. She wanted to say something, but it was indeed too late. At this time the two people were already facing each other. If Himeiwa said anything it would be a bit unreasonable. One was an old classmate and the other was a new classmate with a good impression. If Himeiwa hated the two to the extreme she would definitely stop them. However, the key problem was that Himeiwa didn't hate them, so she let them do whatever they wanted. Don't look at me. I'm not interested in gambling with you. Linny looked at Fanganha and said faintly, I'm drinking with you because of Baiwedo. Fanganha was annoyed. This Linny didn't put him in his eyes. He was completely ignoring him. Fanganha was thinking about whether or not he should find a chance to mess with Linny and show him how strong he was. Alright. Let's sing. Himeiwa didn't want to waste any more time. She still had things to do tomorrow, and the military training was starting the day after. There was some unpleasantness between them, but Himeiwa's voice was really good. Baiwetua and Zhang Duopan were in unison, praising Himeiwa. At night, Linny drove his roommates and Xinyan back to school. Zhang Duopan and Fanganha, on the other hand, had to take a taxi back. Boss, how did you do it? You replaced that erguatu with plain water? Baiwetua said excitedly, but then remembered that Himeiwa was still sitting in the back. He felt a little embarrassed. Meiwa. You drank water? Himeiwa was a little surprised. I didn't switch the water, Fanganha did, Linny said. Xinyan overheard the conversation between Fanganha and the waiter when she went to the washroom, so I switched it for you secretly. That water was meant for Zhang Duopan. No wonder. Himeiwa realized. Linny had been sitting in the room the whole time, and no matter how powerful he was, there was no way he could have switched the liquor in the erguatu with water in front of everyone. But it was possible that he'd secretly switched the two bottles. I was wondering, so it was their own doing. No wonder Zhang Duopan didn't say anything when he sniffed the liquor in my glass, and then didn't say anything. He just looked like he was eating shit. He was the one who got the short end of the stick. Baiwetua laughed heartily. You're amazing, big bro Lin. You did it without anyone noticing. It's just a small trick, Linny said faintly. Xinyan, on the other hand, smiled faintly. She'd known all along that Linny was capable of this. Didn't he steal all the money from those scammers on the train? When they arrived at school, Lin Yi and the others sent Xinyan, Himeiwa, and Chai Xiaoling back to their dorms before heading back to the boys' dorm. However, they bumped into the Miss and Shu in front of the girls' dorm. Lin Yi was walking shoulder to shoulder with Xinyan when he saw Meng Yao. He froze. Xinyan was a little startled. She didn't know what these two pretty girls were up to, but she could tell that they were looking at her with hostility. Xinyan didn't know what she'd done to offend them, or were they here for Lin Yi? The school beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1890. Meng Yao and Yushu naturally had an impression of Xinyan. It was the first time they went shopping with Lin Yi, and Lin Yi stood up for this pretty girl. That pissed off both Meng Yao and Yushu. Xinyan might not have anything to do with Lin Yi, but they didn't have a good impression of this girl. But other than Lin Yi, Baiwetua, Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao were all wide-eyed. Where did these two school beauties come from? And why did it seem like they had some sort of grudge against Lin Yi and Xinyan? Lin Yi, Meng Yao said faintly as she looked at Xinyan. I'm done here, let's go home. Xinyan looked at Meng Yao a little surprised. Wasn't Lin Yi's girlfriend Xiao Xiao? Why did Meng Yao sound like she was living with Lin Yi? Could it be that Lin Yi changed girlfriends? No wonder Meng Yao's eyes were so unfriendly. So it was because he was with Lin Yi? I'll be on my way. Xinyan smiled faintly as she nodded to Lin Yi and left. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that the miss would say something so flirtatious in front of everyone. Back in high school, the miss didn't want people to know that he was living with her, but now that they were in university she was telling everyone about it. Let's go. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly. Baiwetua and the others were dumbfounded. So this was Lin Yi's girlfriend? Then Xinyan, Himeiwa frowned as she looked at Lin Yi and then at Xinyan who was walking away. She couldn't see anything wrong. Wang Xinyan was still as calm as ever, as if what was happening in front of her had nothing to do with her. This confused Himeiwa. Was there really nothing going on between Wang Xinyan and Lin Yi? Lin Yi and Baiwetua waved their hands and walked towards the parking lot with Miss and Shu. No way. We've all misunderstood? Baiwetua's eyes widened in disbelief. Living together? No wonder boss didn't come back last night. Song Xiaodao enviously said. Xinyan. Is there really nothing going on between you and Lin Yi? Himeiwa pulled on Xinyan's arm. Really? Xinyan shrugged, a bitter smile on her face. We're just friends? Okay, I believe you this time. Himeiwa finally nodded. But I always feel that the two of you are a little ambiguous. It's really pure? Sun Yan joked. Lin Yi, Mengyao, and Yushu came to the parking lot together. Surprisingly, the miss didn't mention Sun Yan anymore. Instead, she talked about something else. Military training the day after tomorrow. Bring me and Shu some first aid medicine. The kind that heals external injuries and detoxifies. Mengyao said. There will be field training, and I'm worried that something might happen without you around. Okay, but call me if there's any trouble. Lin Yi nodded. Every faculty has a different time, so we probably won't run into each other. Mengyao said. Plus, Shu and I want to train ourselves. We can't rely on you for everything. You'll leave us sooner or later. Yeah, Shield Bro flirts with girls all the time. He doesn't talk to us anymore. Yushu nodded, feeling wronged. So you two are still unhappy about Wang Xinyan? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. There's nothing going on between me and her. Didn't I tell you guys? I took the same train with her when I first came to Songshan. She's kind, so we got to know each other. I know, I didn't say anything, Mengyao said faintly. But you're doing this to Xiao Xiao. We don't think it's a good idea. Xiao Xiao? Lin Yi frowned at the mention of Xiao Xiao. This wasn't the first time he had this weird feeling. Thinking about Xiao Xiao made Lin Yi feel like he had a girlfriend. Right, Xiao Xiao? She's my second wife? Am I right? Mengyao and Yushu looked at each other. They didn't know how to answer, but Yushu nodded. Yeah, why? Then here's the problem, if she's the second wife, then who's the main wife? Lin Yi asked. As expected, here's the problem. The miss frowned. She knew that this wouldn't be solved so easily. There were still some flaws in this medicine. If it was Tang Yun who stayed in Snowy Valley and focused on training, there wouldn't be so many problems. But the problem was that Lin Yi had gone back to his old life. There were some things in his life that reminded him of his memories. It wasn't as simple as just forgetting about Tang Yun. Lin Yi might not be able to remember what he couldn't see, but what about what he could see? Mengyao and Yushu looked at each other bitterly, not knowing how to explain. It seemed like Lin Yi didn't forget that Xiao Xiao was his second wife. Actually, Yao Yao is your main wife, Yushu said seriously. Lin Yi was speechless. He didn't believe Shu. Don't listen to Shu's nonsense. I'm hungry, let's go. Mengyao interrupted, changing the topic for now. When they got home, Grandma Sun was busy preparing dinner. Mengyao, on the other hand, pulled Shu upstairs. Lin Yi didn't ask much. The two were always like this at home. Lin Yi used this time to go out and buy medicine. There were injury medicines, but there weren't that many antidotes. Lin Yi had some with him, and after giving it to Mengyao and the others, Lin Yi didn't have any left. Naturally, he had to make some more. Mengyao and Yushu went upstairs. The Miss face was very serious. Shu, Lin Yi seems to have remembered something. What do we do? Yeah, I think so too. Shield Bro seems to have remembered something, but he doesn't remember anything related to Yun Yun Sis. He remembers everything else very clearly. I can't even lie to him that you're the main wife, because he remembers that you're not. Yushu said bitterly. That's right. I can see it too. It doesn't matter if it's you, me, or anyone else, as long as you're with Tang Yun, it's all gone. But the side effects are very obvious as well. It'll cause memory gaps. Mengyao frowned. What should we do? If we tell the truth, then we'll waste Yun Yun's efforts. But if we don't, Lin Yi will only get more and more suspicious. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Chapter 1891. It'd be great if we could get in touch with Xiao Xiao. We'll be able to think of something if we're together, Yushu said. Yeah, you two have the most ideas. Mengyao nodded. Speak of the devil and he'll appear. Sometimes reality was just that coincidental. Snowy Valley. Tang Yun's parents had been here for a while. Tang Juqing didn't have much of a problem. The ice palace was beautiful, and he could live like a hermit with his wife and daughter. He didn't have to work hard, and he didn't have to worry about food and clothing. Everything was taken care of by the Snowy Valley. It was just that he wasn't used to having food and clothes at his fingertips. Xiaoming was also a quiet person. Every day, other than cultivating the mental cultivation technique of the Snow Valley with Mother Tang, she lived a quiet life. She was already used to being neglected in the Tang family. Compared to here, where she could walk around freely and see her sister, brother-in-law, and daughter, this was like heaven. But Madame Tang's arrival had brought disaster upon the Snowy Valley. The venerable elder had always thought that she was a snobbish person after practicing heartless tactics. But after meeting Mrs. Tang, she finally understood what snobbery and greed were. Compared to her, Mrs. Tang paled in comparison. Reporting to Elder Zhang on duty, the disciples of the snowy valley found 1,000-year snow lotus. A disciple cupped his fist. Ah, 1,000-year snow lotus. Yin isn't that precious? Let's leave it for Linny. Linny is a practitioner too, but he doesn't have that many treasures. We should leave all the good stuff for him. Mrs. Tang was even better than the pig. Whenever the snowy valley found something good, she would always bring Tang Yun to the scene. A few black lines appeared on the Grand Elder's forehead. It had only been a few days, and Mrs. Tang had taken over half of the good stuff they found. How were they supposed to live in the future? They weren't familiar with the snowy valley now. By the time they got to know each other better, wouldn't Mother Tang have already ransacked the entire Snow Valley's treasury? Mom, you've already saved a lot of good stuff for Linny, Tang Yun said helplessly. I'm not afraid of having too many good stuff. I want this snow lotus. Mrs. Tang said to Elder Zhang arrogantly. Yes, Mrs. Tang? Elder Zhang's forehead was covered in cold sweat, however, even the Grand Elder couldn't do anything about it. How could Elder Zhang stop Mrs. Tang? Mrs. Tang's pet phrase was, if you don't want to give it to me, fine, I'll take my daughter and leave. Go back to find Linny, get married and have children. Inheritance my ass. If you have the ability, why don't you kill us? Therefore, the Great Elder did not do anything to her at all. The Great Elder had never seen such a snobbish and shameless person in his life. This was simply turning hostile. If things did not go his way, he would threaten to leave, and the Grand Elder could only let him do as he pleased. After all, Shuigu didn't have anything to threaten Tang Yun with now, and Lin Yi's qi deviation had been cured. If Tang Yun insisted on leaving, Shuigu couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't easy to find an inheritor, they couldn't really kill her, could they? And Mrs. Tang was Tang Yun's mother, and they couldn't offend her. If they offended her, Tang Yun wouldn't cultivate properly, and the one who would suffer in the end would be Shuigu. Moreover, Mrs. Tang wasn't Tang Yun's biological mother, but an adoptive mother, and Mrs. Tang's real daughter was Bing Tang. If they really killed her, wouldn't that girl Bing Tang explode in anger and turn Shuigu upside down? One had to know that Bing Tang wasn't weaker than the Great Elder, and Bing Tang's cultivation method was obviously better than the Great Elder's. Even the Great Elder didn't have the confidence to win against her. The Grand Elder was filled with hatred. Before Mrs. Tang came, he was the one who threatened Tang Yun. In order to cure Lin Yi, Tang Yun had no choice but to compromise. But when Mrs. Tang came, the situation was completely reversed. Mrs. Tang had become the Grand Elder who threatened everyone. Fortunately, Shuigu was a big family and didn't lack these things. Mrs. Tang wasn't a greedy person, and she would at least leave half of it for Shuigu. This made the Great Elder feel better. However, as greedy as Mrs. Tang was, she treated her own people well, especially Lin Yi. Once she decided on him as her son-in-law, even if Tang Yun's status was high now, she didn't have the slightest intention of letting Tang Yun climb up the ladder. In comparison, it was better than the Great Elder's heartless snobbishness. Mom, that's enough. Tang Yun felt helpless towards her mother. The two mothers' personalities were completely different. What do you mean that's enough? I'll go to the Ice Palace tomorrow and ask Bing Tang for more stuff. Doesn't she want to be Lin Yi's little wife? If she doesn't show some sincerity, I won't be on her side, Mrs. Tang said. Cough cough. The Great Elder almost choked to death at Mrs. Tang's words. It wasn't just their family that was going to suffer, but the Ice Palace was going to suffer as well. But this made the Great Elder very happy, thinking about how Bing Tang was going to suffer as well. She felt that it was nothing for Shuigu to suffer a bit. Haha. Tang Yun sighed to herself. She didn't tell her mother about Lin Yi's situation, so she didn't know that Lin Yi had already forgotten about her. Tang Yun didn't want her mother to worry, so she kept it a secret. But hearing that her mother was going to the Ice Palace made her feel uneasy. Xiao Xiao probably didn't know about Lin Yi's situation yet, and if her mother really went to the Ice Palace and Xiao Xiao contacted Lin Yi, wouldn't her efforts be wasted? Tang Yun knew that her mother was probably just saying it casually, and the chances of her going to the Ice Palace was close to zero, but she didn't want to take the risk. As she practiced heartless arts, the coldness around Tang Yun became thicker and thicker, and she had a cold and emotionless aura around her, making people feel like they couldn't get close to her. Only people who practiced the same element would be less affected, and Lin Yi practiced an extreme yang element, so there was no chance of him being with her. Tang Yun finally understood why heartless arts was called heartless arts. Only a person who was disheartened and wanted to forget his feelings would create such a mental cultivation method and mnemonic chant. Tang Yun didn't feel anything wrong at first, but as her strength increased, every time she thought of Lin Yi, the sweetness of the past, she'd feel as if her heart was being cut by an ice knife. It was like blood was dripping and the pain was unbearable. Tang Yun knew that this might be the result of not taking the senseless grass's medicinal liquid. The school beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1892. Right now she was only at the peak of the early phase of golden class, and it was already so unbearable. The path ahead would only be more painful. Plus, this was a situation where Tang Yun had accepted the inheritance before training. If she wasn't an inheritor, it would be even more painful to break through the barrier during training. It was practically a torture for a person. But even without the barrier, it was still very painful for Tang Yun to train. However, she didn't tell anyone about her pain, not even her mother or the Grand Elder. Because she knew that this was her own choice and it was the choice she had made. Every time she finished her training she would think about how she would become a master, someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Lin Yi. She would feel happiness from the bottom of her heart. I can be as strong as you, I can be your helper. Although it's impossible in reality, but in my dreams, I will fight alongside you. I won't be your burden anymore, I'll be your pride. When the ancient sects communicated with each other, they still maintained the ancient tradition of writing letters. But when it came to important matters, they had the newest high-tech communication method, satellite phones. There was no cell signal in the inner sect of the Snowy Valley, and there were no landlines either. But satellite phones were unimpeded. Of course, only when an elder or a sect leader had something important to discuss would they use the satellite phone. Sister Shui, can I use the satellite phone in the valley? Tang Yun found Sydney wanting to borrow the phone to call Xiao Xiao. She was afraid that her mother would mess things up first. Satellite phone? You want to call? Shueli looked at Tang Yun strangely. Tang Yun's parents were already here. Who was Tang Yun calling? I want to call Xiao Xiao, Tang Yun said. Xiao Xiao? You mean the Ice Palace? Sydney's expression tensed up. The Snowy Valley hadn't told the Ice Palace about finding an inheritor yet. They wanted to show off after Tang Yun became a sky class. That would be shocking. After all, Tang Yun trained after receiving the inheritance. Compared to Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance, it was much faster because Tang Yun didn't have the barrier of a practitioner's level. It wasn't that her path of cultivation would be smooth sailing, but Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance was much faster. But at least it was rain or shine. So when the Snow Valley suddenly took out an inheritor with the strength of a peak late-stage heaven stage, it would naturally be more shocking than now. He didn't think that Tang Yun would call him right now. But Sydney thought about it carefully. With the relationship between Tang Yun, Xiao Xiao and Bing Tang, this matter couldn't be hidden for long. After all, Bing Tang's birth mother lived in the Snow Valley. It was possible to hide it for a while, but it would be difficult to hide it for a long time. Plus, Mrs. Tang had said that she went to the Ice Palace today and took all the treasures for Lin Yi. How could she not talk about Tang Yin's situation? Compared to that, he might as well go and shock the little girl Bing Tang, and let her know that the Snow Valley also had an inheritor. Yes, it's her Lin Yi's concubine. Tang Yun smiled. Sydney frowned. She didn't know how good Lin Yi was. Why did so many people like him? But this was other people's business and Sydney couldn't say much. She just said, Okay, Tang Yun's sister, I will discuss it with the Grand Elder, but it should be fine. Yes, thank you. Tang Yun nodded. No need to thank me. You are the future Grand Elder. In the Snow Valley your position is not lower than mine. You are welcome. Sydney shook her head. At first, she treated Tang Yun well because Tang Yun brought benefits to the Snow Valley. But as they got to know each other, Sydney found that Tang Yun was a person who was easy to get along with. At least she didn't have any arrogance because she was an inheritor. In fact, with Tang Yun's status in the Snow Valley, even if her words did not carry enormous weight, she could at least override Shueli's authority. However, Tang Yun did not do so. She was still polite to Shueli without a trace of arrogance. Why don't we go together? Tang Yun was a little impatient. She was afraid that her mother would call Bing Tang first, and Xiao Xiao would contact Lin Yi. That would be a big deal. One had to know that Mrs. Tang wouldn't listen to others. If she wanted to make a call, even the Grand Elder couldn't stop her. Although everyone knew that she was just saying that she would take Tang Yun away, no one dared to provoke her. Okay. Sydney said, then let's go together. When they arrived at the Great Elder's room, Shueli briefly explained Tang Yun's idea to the Great Elder. The Great Elder nodded without hesitation and said, All right Shueli, give Bing Tang a call first and show the power of our Snow Valley. Then let Yun Yun talk to Xiao Xiao. Okay. Sydney was also angry. Last time she was rejected by Bing Tang. This time, she wanted to show Bingtang that the Snow Valley could find an inheritor even without the help of the Ice Palace. The satellite phone of the ancient sects wouldn't be used easily. Once it was used, it would be a big deal. The phone was brought to Bingtang and Qing said, "Palace Master, there's a satellite phone." Bingtang nodded and picked up the phone. "Hello, I'm Bingtang." The people who could use this phone were the heads or elders of the ancient houses and sections. So when Bingtang picked up the phone, she didn't show any disrespect or arrogance. After all, the people on the other side were on the same level as her. "Sect leader, I am Xueli," Xueli said straightforwardly. "So it's the Snow Valley Master. What do you want?" Bingtang was curious. She had just rejected Sydney not long ago. Why was she calling again? Hee, it's nothing. "I just wanted to tell you that the Snow Valley has an inheritor, and she has already comprehended the power of the Snow Valley's inheritance." Xueli's tone was calm, but everyone could hear the pride in her voice. "What? There's an inheritor? And he learned the inheritance?" Bingtang's eyes widened in shock. The Snow Valley finding an inheritor was already a great thing, but to learn the inheritor, that was a very difficult thing to do. Even Xiao Xiao and Bingtang couldn't guarantee that they'd be able to accept the inheritor. After all, the inheritance was about understanding the power of the heavens and earth. It depended on luck and coincidence. It wasn't guaranteed to succeed. "Yes, sorry, but our Snow Valley was a step ahead of you." Sydney smiled. "Palace Master Bing, thank you for rejecting me last time. Otherwise, we might have wasted a talent." The School Beauty's personal expert welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1893. Sydney was speaking the truth. If Bingtang had agreed to Sydney's suggestion, then Sydney and the Grand Elder would have been so happy that they would have given the fruit to Tang Yun and let them leave. There wouldn't be any inheritance then. But these words sounded like sarcasm to Bingtang. Bingtang humphed, "Then I'll have to congratulate you. Congratulations to your Snowy Valley, you'll be the guest of honor there, going to Heaven Class Island together. Haha, but we really have to thank you for this. In the future, our Snowy Valley and Ice Palace will be even closer." Sydney said. "What do you mean?" Bingtang frowned, not understanding what Sydney meant. Snowy Valley and Ice Palace used to be one family thousands of years ago. They both originated from that place, but the two sects fought and supported each other. To say that they were closer was a bit strange. "Our Shuegu's future Supreme Elder will be your younger sister, cousin and cousin. That's almost the same as your biological sister. Don't you think it's closer than ever?" Xueli said proudly. Shuegu finally had a chance to vent his anger. Naturally, Xueli would not let it go. "You mean Tang Yun?" Bingtang paused and immediately thought of Tang Yun. But she was a bit doubtful. How did Tang Yun become the inheritor? Her body? That's right. "We have to thank your Ice Palace for leaving such a talent to our Snowy Valley." Sydney smiled. "As far as I know, her body isn't anything special." Bingtang paused as she thought of something. Could it be the legendary hidden ice heart jade bone body? That's right. Sydney said, "It is the rare hidden ice heart jade bone body. It's the same as our Grand Elder." She directly opened the inheritance in the Snowy Valley. Why did she go to the Snowy Valley? Bingtang was curious. Although the Ice Palace had their own information channels, they didn't find out that Tang Yun stayed in the Snowy Valley. Of course, this was a secret. After Linny came back, no one mentioned Tang Yun again. The Ice Palace naturally wouldn't know the real reason. "I'll let little sister Tang tell you the details." Sydney let out a sigh of relief. Naturally, she didn't want to explain the reason. It was better for Tang Yun to explain. With that, Sydney handed the phone to Tang Yun. "Bingtang sis." Tang Yun took the phone. Yun, it's really you?" Rock Candy took a deep breath in disbelief. But the truth was right in front of her eyes. She had no choice but to believe it. Tang Yun actually had the hidden heart of ice and jade bones. It was even stronger than his fake ice heart jade bone physique. However, it could only be discovered in a place like the Snow Valley. In the Ice Palace, it would probably never be discovered. Not to mention accepting the inheritance. "Yes." "Bingtang sis, I stayed in the Snow Valley." Tang Yun told Bingtang everything that happened during this period of time. "So that's how it is. No wonder you could accept the inheritance under such circumstances." Rock Candy said, "But Linny." "Never mind, you talk to Xiao Xiao." Rock Candy didn't want to say anything about Lin Yi and Tang Yun. She didn't expect that Tang Yun would make such a sacrifice, giving the forgetfulness herb to Lin Yi and letting her face the pain of yearning alone. This wasn't something a normal person could do. Xiao Xiao heard that it was a call from Tang Yun and ran over. taking the phone from Tang Tang's hands excitedly. Tang Yun sis. Xiao Xiao. Hearing this familiar voice, Tang Yun's heart warmed. Tang Yun's heart warmed. It feels so good to be able to hear your voice again. Yes Tang Yun sis, I'm good now. When I become a sky class we'll go back and play 3P with Lin Yi honey? Xiao Xiao said excitedly. Rock Candy on the other hand was speechless. Qing smiled but didn't say anything. Tang Yun on the other hand couldn't help but cry after hearing this. If it were before she would be really shy when she heard Xiao Xiao say this, but now, Xiao Xiao's suggestion was a distant dream. Even if Tang Yun wanted to and agreed to it, it was impossible. Xiao Xiao, listen to me. I might not be able to be with you guys anymore, Tang Yun said sadly. Tang Yun sis, what's wrong? Xiao Xiao paused and asked. Tang Yun smiled bitterly and told Xiao Xiao what she said to Rock Candy. Ah? Xiao Xiao cried out in shock. You're saying that you gave Lin Yi's husband the forgetfulness herb? Doesn't that mean he won't remember you anymore? How are we going to do 3P then? You go play with Yao Yao and Shu. I'm afraid that when my heartless arts reaches its peak, you guys won't like me anymore? Tang Yun said helplessly and sadly. Who would like someone with a cold aura around them, someone who made people want to stay away from them? Tang Yun sis, is there really no other way? Xiao Xiao started to feel sad as well. No, unless my heart doesn't change and Lin Yi doesn't hate me, or maybe he's not afraid of this cold aura that makes people want to stay away from me, then maybe there's a chance. Tang Yun was just saying it casually because she knew that the possibility was too small. Then, doesn't that mean that I can't do it? I'm training in the ice element too. Xiao Xiao said shocked. We're different, the merciless arts. It can make people emotionless, not just Lin Yi, maybe it's the same for me? Tang Yun smiled bitterly. I heard that you can't have love in the later stages of the merciless arts, otherwise it'll be useless. I see. Xiao Xiao was very sad and sympathetic. Then, what should I do now? Xiao Xiao, what you need to do now is to work with me and make Lin Yi forget me. That's the biggest help and comfort for me. Tang Yun said, if I make Lin Yi remember me, I really don't know if he'll come to Snowy Valley again and forcefully take me away. That won't do either of us any good, and he won't be able to fight against the ancient sects, and I don't want to go back on my words. This is something I promised Snowy Valley of my own accord. The Grand Elder and Sydney relaxed after hearing Tang Yun's words. They'd been scared to death by Mrs. Tang these days, afraid that she'd take Tang Yun away in a fit of anger, and that'd be a huge loss for Snowy Valley. But now that they knew Tang Yun's feelings, they were relieved. The School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Chapter 1894. Resolutely give Yupas for Mrs. Tang, she could take whatever she wanted. Snowy Valley had a strong foundation, and she wasn't an outsider anymore. As long as Tang Yun really became the Grand Elder of Snowy Valley, then Tang Yun would have a part of everything. Oh, I see. Xiao Xiao didn't really want to, but she knew that if she told Lin Yi the truth, she'd be harming Lin Yi and Tang Yun. With Lin Yi's personality, he might really do something out of line. Thinking back to when Lin Yi brought her to the Ice Palace, he wouldn't budge an inch in front of Bing Tang, even bringing up the 2-year agreement. How could Lin Yi just let Tang Yun go like that? Yeah, I've talked to Yao Yao and Shu already. You guys, help me take care of him. Perhaps one day we'll meet again, but at that time, I'll be watching you guys from the back, wishing you all the best. Tang Yun said. Man. Xiao Xiao shook her head helplessly and didn't say anything else. It was hard for her, but this was Tang Yun's decision. She knew that this might be the best solution for Lin Yi and Tang Yun. Don't worry. I'll get in touch with Yao Yao and Shu and help you hide it. Okay, thank you, Xiao Xiao. Tang Yun said sincerely. What are you thanking me for? I should be thanking you. If it weren't for your tolerance, I wouldn't be the Xiao Xiao I am now, Xiao Xiao said emotionally. If I wasn't Lin Yi's husband's mistress, I wouldn't be in the Ice Palace. We're family, so let's not talk like that. I can't contact Lin Yi anymore, but I can still contact you. If there's any news about Lin Yi, remember to tell me? Tang Yun said. Okay. Xiao Xiao nodded quickly. I'll call Tang Yun sis first. Okay. That's all for now, we'll keep in touch. Tang Yun said. After hanging up, Tang Yun silently returned the satellite phone to the Grand Elder. This is your decision, I can't stop you. But Tang Yun, tell me, are you really ready? The Grand Elder took over the phone and asked with a serious expression. Yes, I'm ready. Tang Yun nodded heavily. Even if the path of cultivation is full of obstacles and thorns, I will face it calmly. Because he is in my heart. As long as I think of him, I will have the courage to face all difficulties. Since you have chosen to walk down this path, then persevere. The great elder nodded. This is just the beginning, the future will be even more difficult, but I believe that you will walk down this path, because you are the second person who has a hidden heart of ice and jade bones since the founding of the Snow Valley. Perhaps, with your body type, you do not need the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass because you are right, the founder did not consume the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass. Thank you, Grand Elder. Tang Yun was pleasantly surprised when she heard the Grand Elder say that she didn't need to let go of her feelings anymore. No need to thank me, you chose your own path. The Grand Elder shook his head. But there is something I have to remind you in advance. Please speak, Grand Elder, Tang Yun said. Although the Heartless spell was created by the founder of the sect, she did not cultivate it to the 10th level. She was stuck at the peak of the 9th level for her entire life. The Great Elder said, perhaps, this is also the reason why she did not take the senseless herb's medicinal liquid. Ah? Tang Yun paused. This Heartless Arts was created by the founder, but she did not reach the 10th level? Tang Yun just couldn't believe it. A person created an incantation, but she didn't practice it to perfection. How did she create it? The founder was a person with great wisdom and power. You can't use common sense to judge her, the Grand Elder said. The Grand Elder said, actually, it's the same logic as alchemists. Some people are very familiar with medicinal properties and can change the pill formula at will, but if you really ask him to refine the pill, he can't refine it. Could it be that the Grand Elder is talking about armchair strategists? Tang Yun asked, stunned. You could say that, but the founder wasn't an armchair strategist. If this Heartless Arts was trained to the 10th level, it would be a heaven-defying skill. The Grand Elder said seriously. Turning water into ice, turning ice into mist, all it takes is a thought. You can use the power of heaven and earth as you wish. If you train it to perfection, one water inheritor is enough. You don't even need 3. Plus, you'll be more confident when you do that thing, Sky-class Island? Tang Yun's face changed. She knew from Lin Yi what Xiao Xiao had to do as an inheritor, but she didn't know the details, only the general idea. That's right, it's Sky-class Island. The Grand Elder said. If you train to the 10th level, you'll have more confidence in opening Sky-class Island, at least with the water element. Sky-class Island? What is it? How do I open it? Tang Yun asked. That. I don't know. The Grand Elder shook her head. That's news from that place. They didn't say the specifics and I only have a general idea. Maybe you'll know when you become a Sky-class late phase peak? That place. Tang Yun paused. She didn't know what the Grand Elder was talking about. You'll get your answer in the Sky-class meeting? The Grand Elder said. If you haven't broken through by the 9th level peak, then you can consider whether or not you want to use the forgetful grass. So you're saying that even if I don't use the forgetful grass, it won't affect me much? Tang Yun asked. That's right. There's Xiao Xiao from the Ice Palace in that place. I heard that they've already prepared a water element inheritor. We have water, mist, and ice elements, and the 9th level peak is enough. The Grand Elder said regretfully. But the power of the 10th level is something you can't imagine. If you really make it to the 10th level, even if you don't surpass Sky Class, you'll at least become the number 1 in Sky Class, the number 1 in the world. Ah? The power of Heartless Arts shocked Tang Yun. If she really made it to the 10th level, then she'd become Lin Yi's biggest helper. Didn't that mean? No, if she used the Heartless Grass, how would she remember Lin Yi? With that thought, Tang Yun gave up on that idea. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1895. Chapter 1907, Xiao Xiao's solution being the strongest in the world evidently didn't appeal to her. In her heart, she only wanted to remember that little bit of happiness that belonged only to her. That sunny day under the tree, Lin Yi personally put the engagement ring on her. He didn't remember it anymore, but it was enough that she remembered it. Seeing the gentleness and happiness in Tang Yun's eyes, the Grand Elder and Sydney shook their heads at the same time. It seemed that this huge attraction wasn't as important as a memory. Alright, I won't say any more. Li, tell Elder Zhang to give Tang Yun a satellite phone so that she can contact the Ice Palace at any time. Since the Grand Elder approved of Tang Yun's choice, he didn't restrict her from contacting the outside world. Of course, this phone could only reach the Ice Palace. Xiao Xiao called Mingyao immediately after the call with Tang Yun. She couldn't wait to find someone to share her depressed feelings with. Ah? Yushu paused as she looked at the weird number on her phone. Hello? So, it's Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao said. Xiao Xiao? Yushu cried out. Yao Yao, it's Xiao Xiao calling. What? Xiao Xiao? Meng Yao was surprised as well. I just mentioned Xiao Xiao and she's calling? Yeah. Yushu nodded. Xiao Xiao, did you miss us? Of course, we're a prankster duo, Xiao Xiao said. And Yao Yao and Linny honey too. Ah, right, do you know about Tang Yun sis? Yushu hadn't even been happy for 2 minutes when she remembered Tang Yun's situation. Her heart sank and her excitement waned. I know. Xiao Xiao was silent as well. Tang Yun sis just called me. Ah, she contacted you? Yushu blinked. Why didn't she contact me? We ancient sects have our own ways of contacting each other, but her situation is a bit stricter than mine. I can call whenever I want, but she can't, Xiao Xiao said. She called me this time to talk about Lin Yi's husband. Yeah, Yao Yao, and I wanted to talk to you about Shield Bro as well, Yushu said. Oh, you're looking for me too? Xiao Xiao blinked. What about Linny? What happened to him? Are you in trouble? Trouble. I did, but it's over now. Yushu shook her head. So you did run into some trouble. Thank goodness you're fine. Xiao Xiao relaxed. So you're looking for me? It's like this. Although Shield Bro used the forgetfulness herb and forgot about Tang Yun sis, there seems to be a gap in his memory, Yushu said. Fault? Vacancy? What do you mean? Xiao Xiao didn't quite understand what Yushu meant. Yushu sighed and didn't know how to describe it more accurately. It's like this, to be more specific, all of Shield Bro's memories of Tang Yun sis are gone, which means that no matter if it's you, me, Yao Yao sis, or anyone else related to Tang Yun sis, Shield Bro doesn't remember anything, but he remembers you, me, Yao Yao sis, and everyone else, but he doesn't remember Tang Yun sis. Is there a problem with that? Xiao Xiao didn't think there was anything wrong with what Yushu said. Naturally there's a problem, Yushu said. Yushu said, Shield Bro, he knows you're his small wife, so he's thinking, who's his big wife? But he doesn't remember, so he asked Yao Yao and I, and luckily, we interrupted him, or else he'd ask again and we wouldn't know how to explain. It's fine once, but if it happens too many times, it'll be a problem. I see. Isn't that easy? Yao Yao sis always wants to be the big wife, right? Then just tell Linny honey that Yao Yao sis is the big wife, Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Meng Yao had taken advantage of the situation, but Xiao Xiao didn't have any thoughts of going against them right now. In order to not waste Tang Yun's efforts, Meng Yao had taken advantage of the situation. It was a happy ending. No way. Yushu shook her head. I wanted to do that before, but Shield Bro doesn't remember Tang Yun, but he remembers our relationship. He almost thought I was sick last time. That's true? Xiao Xiao frowned. This was a problem. If there was a small wife, then there had to be a big wife. So who was the big wife? So, Yao Yao and I were thinking about discussing it with you, Yushu said helplessly. Let me think. Xiao Xiao thought about it carefully. After a while she asked, you're saying that Linny honey doesn't remember what happened between me and Tang Yun sis, right? Yes, he doesn't remember anything like that at all. Yushu nodded. Then he probably doesn't remember what we talked about Tang Yun sis, right? Xiao Xiao continued. That should be it. He doesn't remember anything related to Tang Yun sis, Yushu said. That's good, I've got an idea, Xiao Xiao said suddenly. What idea? Yushu asked quickly. Let's say that I'm the one who pestered Linny honey to chase after him, Xiao Xiao said. Isn't that how it is? Yushu was confused. It's not the same, listen to me, Xiao Xiao said. Then you tell Linny honey that he doesn't like me, so I asked to be the small wife, allowing him to find the big wife he likes and have a threesome with him. Will that work? Yushu hesitated. Linny wasn't an idiot, couldn't he see the problem? Of course. When Linny honey took me in, it was because of Tang Yun sis's help. He doesn't remember anything about Tang Yun sis now, so he'll only remember that I chased him. As for how he agreed to it, he definitely doesn't remember, so there's a lot of stuff going on here, Xiao Xiao said. Doesn't that just benefit Linny? Yushu put Meng Yao's ear on the phone as well after getting the call. Meng Yao heard Xiao Xiao say that she wanted Lin Yi to find a big wife. Didn't that mean that Lin Yi had another woman? And so, Meng Yao gasped subconsciously. Chapter 1896. Overjoyed, but after saying that, Meng Yao felt like she was being too nosy. Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao didn't have any objections, why would she care? I don't have a choice, this is the only way I can think of, otherwise I really don't know how to deal with him. Xiao Xiao didn't really care about Lin Yi having a big wife, she was a small wife, and she had already accepted the fact that Meng Yao and Yushu would become Lin Yi's women in the future, so she came up with this idea. Meng Yao was silent. Indeed, only Xiao Xiao's method could explain why Lin Yi didn't have a main wife and had a main wife. Lin Yi remembered how Xiao Xiao had chased him, and if she'd just randomly come up with an excuse saying that she was a second wife, he probably wouldn't have believed her. He remembered that Xiao Xiao was a second wife and it wasn't a joke. That was why he'd asked so seriously. It seems like this is the only way. We really can't think of anything else. Meng Yao helplessly accepted the reality. But, Yao Yao, you can try a little harder, okay? We told him to find a big wife, but he doesn't have one yet, right? If you become his big wife, wouldn't that be fine? Xiao Xiao could tell that Meng Yao wasn't in a good mood. I don't think I can. Let him find someone else. Meng Yao said subconsciously but regretted it immediately after. Why couldn't she become Lin Yi's big wife? But she'd already said it and she couldn't go back on her words. You guys take care of it. Xiao Xiao didn't mind. Alright, let's talk later. I need to go train. Time's up. Aren't you going to talk to Lin Yi? Meng Yao asked. I won't. Xiao Xiao hesitated before shaking her head. I promised Rock Candy that I wouldn't contact Lin Yi until he successfully makes the Ice Heart Jade Bone pill. I can't go back on my words. Alright, let's keep in touch then, Meng Yao said. Can I call this number? No, this number is encrypted. You can't call in. Xiao Xiao shook her head. There's no cell signal in the Ice Palace, but only ancient sects have satellite phone numbers. The reason I'm calling you guys is because of Bing Tang Sis and Aunt Qing's trust in me, but I can't tell you this number. Yeah, it's fine. We don't really have anything to do. Meng Yao stopped asking after hearing the reason. I will contact you regularly. By the way, you said you encountered some trouble just now? What's going on? Xiao Xiao remembered what Shu said about the trouble. It's actually like this. Meng Yao simply explained the trouble they'd run into, and it wasn't as scary as Yushu's. Meng Yao's words sounded a little flat, but even so, Xiao Xiao could hear the danger in it. That's scary. If Lin Yi honey didn't explode, wouldn't he be in danger? Xiao Xiao said. Yeah, but there was nothing we could do. I wanted to contact you back then, but I didn't have a way to contact you. Meng Yao said helplessly, but at least we're out of danger now. I wish I could help you guys so much. But my strength is still too low. Xiao Xiao was a weird person, but she sighed because of her strength. Bing Tang Sis, maybe she'd help if I begged her, but she'd look down on Lin Yi and break that 2-year promise. Meng Yao and Yushu were silent. They didn't know if the inheritor was in danger, but Tang Yun was already the inheritor, and Lin Yi had forgotten about her. But if Xiao Xiao were to become the inheritor, then Lin Yi wouldn't just let it go like that. If he sacrificed Xiao Xiao to save Lin Yi, then Lin Yi wouldn't be happy either. It was a bit of a headache. Luckily they didn't contact Xiao Xiao, and luckily Lin Yi was out of danger by himself. But if I'd known, I'd still ask her to help. Worst case scenario, I'd just become the inheritor. If Tang Yun Sis can do it, so can I. Xiao Xiao smiled. Alright, it's all over now. Let's not talk about these depressing things. Meng Yao shook her head. Xiao Xiao, go to your thing. I'll discuss with Shu how to explain this to Lin Yi the next time he brings it up. Hanging up, Meng Yao sighed softly. She had to find a big wife for Lin Yi just like that? She really didn't want to, but she had no choice. Xiao Xiao's suggestion was the only solution. Lin Yi had entered the Jade Space long ago and started practicing the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery. This feeling of accumulating made Lin Yi feel like he was back in the mountains when he was practicing the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery. It was the same feeling he had back then, feeling the chi flow in his body getting faster and faster under the activation of the arts, but the amount of chi he was absorbing wasn't much. More accurately speaking, Lin Yi didn't have that crazy absorption feeling he got from the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery, and so his leveling speed was slowing down. But Lin Yi also noticed the positive. While the absorption speed was slower, the energy converted by the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery was purer. In other words, the amount of energy Lin Yi absorbed was less, but the converted energy was more refined. This made Lin Yi's Earth Class early phase start to loosen up a little, and he was getting closer to Earth Class early phase peak. When Lin Yi noticed this, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. If it weren't for this, Lin Yi would have switched back to the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery because the first stage absorbed a lot of chi. But now it seemed like it was pointless. The energy consumption was a little too high and the efficiency was too low. But while he was happy, he was also depressed. The happy part was that Lin Yi's strength had increased, but the depressed part was that the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery seemed to be stuck at the early stage. When Lin Yi used it, he wasn't very familiar with it and it didn't feel as smooth as the first stage. Of course, he'd only been training for a couple of days, and he knew that it wasn't wise to bite off more than he could chew. His strength had to be increased bit by bit, not all at once. Elder Jiao had already told him to take it easy and steady, so there was no point in thinking about that unrealistic speed. Chapter 1897. Chapter 1909, News of Pangolin. The next morning, Lin Yi drove Mengyao and Yushu to school. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't have much to do. Medicine majors didn't have to participate in the student council election, and the class president of the major had to be a member of the school's student council. As for the faculty student council, he could get a position there anyways, so he didn't have to worry about the election at all. That was the benefit of being a minor. The other majors, on the other hand, had to participate in the election if they wanted to enter the student council or faculty student council. After all, there was a limit to the number of people in each major. Mengyao and Yushu went to participate in the election, and Lin Yi went back to the dorm with nothing to do. He knew that the three perverts would ask him some questions, but Lin Yi didn't think that he'd be surrounded the moment he entered the room. "I say, Lin Yi boss, that's not very nice of you. Was that your girlfriend looking for you yesterday? You're living with her? And you lied to us that you're staying with your relative?" Song Xiaodao started yelling when he saw Lin Yi enter the room. "Big bro Lin, you're amazing. I always thought that Wang Xinyan was your girlfriend, but now it seems that your girlfriend isn't worse than Wang Xinyan at all." Bai Weitua said, "I think that this year's school beauty ranking is also on it." "School beauty list? What's that?" Lin Yi asked. "Oh, it's just some students who have nothing better to do at school. And the department's QQ group have selected the freshman campus bell list. There is information and a brief introduction for us boys to refer to." Bai Weitua said. "There's one every year, it's become a habit of our school. Right, don't change the subject. Which one of them is your girlfriend?" Neither." Lin Yi shook his head. "Neither?" Bai Weitua paused, and Song Xiaodao and Zhao Xingji looked at him in disbelief. "How is that possible?" I'm not lying. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "A relative of mine asked me to take care of them. We're from the same city, so we're quite familiar with each other. I'm basically their follower." Lin Yi added inwardly she was his follower. "Lackey? No way." Bai Weitua's eyes widened. "Big brother Lin, you're not lying? Why would I lie to you? Yes means yes, no means no. Do you think I'd go to Wang Xinyan's place instead of hanging out with her if she really was my girlfriend?" Lin Yi shrugged with a bitter smile. "That's true. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't do that." Bai Weitua nodded. Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao believed what Lin Yi was saying, but they were still a little suspicious of Lin Yi's relationship with either Mengyao, Yushu, or Xinyan. "What's the plan for today?" Lin Yi interrupted everyone's guesses and asked. "Today our department has nothing to do. Xiaodao and Xingji said that they want to go shopping. They are all foreigners and have never been here before. I was just about to bring them around." "Brother Lin, are you going too?" Bai Weitua asked. "Sure, let's go together then," Lin Yi said. But Huaijuan's call came just as Lin Yi finished his sentence. "Jun bro," Lin Yi picked up. "Why are you still calling me brother? Lingshan, Yutian, and the others are calling you boss already. I'll go back to calling you boss. You're our captain in the first place, our boss," Huaijuan said. "Up to you. What's up?" Lin Yi knew that as his strength increased, the people around him would return to their original state. "Where are you? I have something to discuss with you. It's about House Yu and the drug gang," Huaijuan said. "Before House Yu fell, it was a bit troublesome to investigate, but it's much easier now. We got some information. All right, where are you? I'll come find you immediately." Armadillo's smiling face appeared in Lin Yi's mind, and then it turned into Ziyu. Lin Yi clenched his fist as he asked faintly. No matter who it was, if they touched someone close to Lin Yi wouldn't let them go unscathed. This was Lin Yi's personality. "I'm in Donghai. Right, I didn't tell you yet I got a promotion. I solved a big case a while back, so I got transferred to Donghai. I'm now the vice director here. My position hasn't changed, but this is the provincial capital, so I'm half a rank higher," Huaijuan said. "You're still in Songshan? I'll drive back to find you? You're in Donghai?" Lin Yi's expression was a bit weird, but he smiled. "I'm in Donghai right now, Donghai Industry University. I just came here to report." "Huh? No way, you're in Donghai too? That's great. I was a bit depressed about not being able to see you often, but now it's great," Huaijuan said. "Ah yeah, you're at the police station? I don't know the way." Lin Yi was new to Donghai and he was completely clueless. "Wait for me at the school gate, I'll pick you up in 15 minutes," Huaijuan said. "Alright, see you later." Lin Yi agreed before turning to Bai Weitua and the others apologetically. I'm sorry, an old friend came looking for me. I'm afraid I can't go shopping with you guys. No way, Lin bro, you have so many things to do here in Donghai? Bai Weitua was a bit disappointed. Is it a guy or a girl? A guy, it's a guy this time. Lin Yi sweated. Let's go together if you don't believe me. Perfect, let's go together. But Lin bro, we're not spying on you. Bai Weitua said quickly. Lin Yi smiled helplessly. Of course we're not spying on him, weren't you guys just curious? But the three didn't see anyone special at the school gate, and there weren't any beauties either. They lost interest and went to a nearby bus stop after saying goodbye to Lin Yi. Lin Yi stood in front of the school gate, and an Audi stopped in front of Lin Yi. Huaijun got out of the car and waved at Lin Yi. Boss. Jun. Junzi. Lin Yi wanted to call him Jun bro, but remembered that Lin Yi called him boss, so he decided to call him Huaijun's nickname instead. Ah, it's still as sweet as ever. People would think I don't know the rules if they heard you call me Jun bro. Huaijun said with a sigh of relief. Let's not talk about that. Any news on Armadillo? Lin Yi opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. Not bad, Audi A6, but a little old. Chapter 1898. You know I don't care about that. Huaijun shook his head. I don't have any news about Armadillo, I'm talking about the drug trafficking. Oh? What is it? Lin Yi was a little disappointed, but it wasn't bad to have news about the drug trafficking. Lin Yi wouldn't mind uprooting them if he had the chance. We found a contact list when we were dealing with House Yu's illegal dealings, but we discovered something shocking. Huaijun said solemnly. What is it? Lin Yi asked. Red Conscious, the person in charge of the drug trafficking Enchanted? Huaijun said. Enchanted? Lin Yi's eyes narrowed. Enchanted from Housen? Jiangwen's brother? That's right, it's Enchanted. Huaijun nodded. From this contact list, we can see that the people in charge of Red Conscious are more or less connected to the Firewolves. There's no direct evidence that the Firewolves and Red Conscious are the same organization, but at the very least they're working together. Enchanted? Lin Yi frowned. I shouldn't have killed him. You've killed Enchanted? Huaijun paused. He'd come to Lin Yi this time to see if Lin Yi could get some evidence from Enchanted. It wasn't realistic to use a contact list against Housen or the Firewolves. Huaijun couldn't use normal methods to investigate Enchanted and Housen, so he could only place his hopes on Lin Yi. He didn't think that Enchanted was already dead. Book Ocean Pavilion Net. Lin Yi paused. He knew that the news about Housen hadn't spread, probably because they were trying to keep a low profile. He told Huaijun about how Housen plotted against Pengzhan and caused the car accident. Dead. Forget it then. Huaijun sighed. I thought I could get some clues from him. Does the rest of the Yin family know about this? Lin Yi asked. I'm not sure about that, but I'm afraid they wouldn't know the details even if they knew. I'm just trying it out. After all, the Red Conscious and the Firewolves are part of the investigation department. Huaijun said. Knowing this is enough. With this direction of investigation, I can also pay attention to it at all times. Lin Yi said, but the Firewolf gang has many experts. Their position seems to be higher than the hidden aristocratic families. So powerful? Huaijun cried out involuntarily. He hadn't had much contact with the Firewolves, and this was a very mysterious gang. Their business and activities weren't as grand as the regular gangs. Huaijun didn't have much contact with them, and he didn't know the power behind them. They really are powerful. I wasn't sure before, but it seems like they're powerful enough to send out an Earth-class late-phase peak just like that. Lin Yi shook his head and sighed. Faubert had said that the Firewolves were powerful, but Lin Yi was still shocked when he saw their strength. If that's the case, then I don't recommend you to take the risk right now. After all, the enemy is too strong. Huaijun paused. Boss, I know you're strong taking out 3 Earth-class with one move. But if the Firewolves are as strong as you say, then they might have a Sky class. Yeah, that's also why I didn't do anything to Jiangwen. Lin Yi nodded. He was protective and tyrannical, but he wasn't an idiot who'd risk his life for no reason. He'd only risk his life when he had no other choice, and he'd let them go if it wasn't necessary. It wouldn't be too late to deal with them later. Right, I've already made a report suggesting Ling Shan to be transferred over. She'll also be the captain of the criminal investigation team, but she'll get a promotion as well. After all, she solved many big cases in Songshan, and the previous captain of the criminal investigation team in Donghai was also transferred to another city because of the case I was involved in. Now that position is empty, and as the vice director of the criminal investigation team, I have a lot of say in the selection, Huaijuan said. Lingshan? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that Song Lingshan would follow him right after he left. This is probably her own idea, right? Haha, I knew I wouldn't be able to hide it from you, but girls chasing guys isn't that rare nowadays. If you think she's good, boss, you might as well give her a chance. Huaijuan suggested. I don't think so. She's asking me to help her solve cases all the time. If we really have some sort of relationship, wouldn't I be her assistant all the time? Lin Yi shook his head. Then let's leave it to fate. Huaijuan didn't say much. If that's the case, I'll be going first. Call me if you need anything. We'll have a good gathering after I'm done with this. Wait, since you're here, let's get down to business first. I told you last time that I could help you get to Mystic Early Phase, but your meridians had just recovered, and I was worried that your meridians wouldn't be able to handle it. But now it's fine. I can directly get you to Mystic Late Phase Peak. Lin Yi was an Earth class now, and naturally he could increase Huaijuan's strength directly. He didn't need to compress his chi to help him get from Golden Late Phase Peak to Mystic Early Phase. Compared to Lingshan and Qintian, Huaijuan had one less pain to deal with. Now, Huaijuan took a deep breath. To be honest, he was quite envious of Lingshan, Yutian, and Qintian making a scene in the Noble House meeting as Mystic Late Phase Peak. They were already Mystic Late Phase Peak. This was a height that many practitioners couldn't reach in their entire lifetimes, and yet they were able to reach it so easily. Huaijuan wouldn't believe it if they said that they trained themselves. Thinking back to how fast Lin Yi helped him heal his meridians and level up last time, he knew that it was all thanks to Lin Yi. But Lin Yi didn't bring it up on his own, and Huaijuan couldn't just ask for it. What if Lin Yi needed some time to rest after leveling up these people? Wouldn't it be awkward if he was rejected? But since Lin Yi brought it up, there was no reason for Huaijuan not to say no. If you don't have anything else, let's do it now. Lin Yi nodded. Chapter 1899. Okay, I haven't bought a house here yet, I've been staying at the hotel. Let's go back to the hotel together. Huaijuan said excitedly. CME Huaijuan was staying at the police station's guest house. He had a suite here, and before he bought a house he was staying here. The people in the guest house evidently knew Huaijuan, and they weren't surprised that he'd brought someone back. They thought that he was meeting with a witness or an informant, and naturally no one bothered him. Let's start now, we've learned from last time. Lin Yi smiled. Okay. Huaijuan nodded heavily and sat in front of Lin Yi, extending his hands and letting Lin Yi lock his meridians. He then started channeling his practitioner's arts. Leveling up was a walk in the park for Huaijuan as well. He started channeling the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, converting all the energy in his body into the pure energy Huaijuan needed, flowing into his meridians without end. Huaijuan's strength also broke through from Golden Late Phase Peak to Mystic, rising all the way to Mystic Early Phase Peak, Mystic Mid Phase, Mystic Late Phase Peak. Perhaps because of Lin Yi's increase in strength, Huaijuan didn't need to compress his chi when he broke through from Golden Late Phase Peak to Mystic Early Phase. There was still a barrier, but Lin Yi helped him break through easily. In other words, Huaijuan felt the pain of breaking through a bottleneck, but it wasn't as intense as Yutian and Lingshan's. Mystic Late Phase Peak, Huaijuan had already reached it, but Lin Yi didn't stop. He suddenly had an idea. Would it work if he used the second stage of the art of dragon mastery to compress his chi to help Huaijuan break through? One had to know that the purity of the chi produced by the second stage of the art of dragon mastery wasn't something the first stage could compare to. The difference was so huge that even Lin Yi was shocked. If he used the second stage to compress his chi, perhaps he really might be able to break through. Thinking of this, Lin Yi asked in a deep voice, Junzi, I'm going to help you break through from the mystic rank to the earth rank. Are you okay with that? It might be very painful, and you might even fail at the last step, causing your meridians to be crippled. However, I can still repair them. Since it can be repaired. Then what were they waiting for? Come on, boss, there's no way we can increase our strength without taking some risks. Huaijuan said calmly after hearing Lin Yi's words. Huaijuan might have hesitated if his meridians were completely destroyed, but Lin Yi could repair them even if they were destroyed. The worst-case scenario was that he'd just have to suffer a bit of pain and it'd be a waste of time. If he succeeded, he would become even more powerful. Was there even a need to choose? He believed that all cultivators would choose the latter. Alright then, bear with it. With that, Lin Yi switched from the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery to the second stage. Although he wasn't familiar with the second stage yet, switching between the two stages was still a piece of cake for Lin Yi. Lin Yi started trying to compress his chi with the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery. But to his surprise, he realized that it was extremely difficult to compress his chi. Compared to the first stage, the difference was like heaven and earth. The chi formed by the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery seemed to be very pure, and it didn't allow Lin Yi to compress it any further. Soon, a layer of sweat formed on Lin Yi's forehead, and there was no progress in compressing his chi. Huaijuan was very puzzled. Lin Yi's chi suddenly stopped, but Lin Yi looked like he was working hard on something. Huaijuan didn't feel anything at all, and so he didn't dare ask anything even though he was puzzled. He could only cooperate silently. Lin Yi was panicking. He could use the chi in the second stage when he was searching for the practitioner's arts, but it was a little uncontrollable when it came to compressing it. It was as if he couldn't control it at all. The chi was gathered by Lin Yi, and when he tried to compress it, it either slipped away or dissipated on its own. How strange. Lin Yi didn't believe that he couldn't control the chi in his body. What was the point of practicing the Art of Dragon Mastery then? Gritting his teeth, Lin Yi gave up on compressing a large amount of chi from before, choosing to compress a smaller area instead. This time it had some effect. The chi was still uncontrollable, but under Lin Yi's forceful compression, it slowly shrunk to a certain size. Lin Yi was overjoyed and didn't dare stay any longer. He immediately sent the compressed chi into Huaijuan's meridians. Huaijuan felt Lin Yi's chi pouring into his body once more. He'd been prepared for it, but the sudden release and expansion of the chi still made him feel like his meridians were about to explode. Huaijuan's roar had turned all of his clothes to ash, but the pure energy ripple that had been generated in that instant was enough to destroy everything around him. A trace of joy flashed across Lin Yi's eyes when he broke through to Earth class. He was in the same situation as Huaijuan. But soon, the joy in Lin Yi's eyes turned into disappointment. Huaijuan didn't break through to Earth class, and the chi wave on his body had stopped. Lin Yi could tell with one look that his strength was still at mystic late phase peak. Huaijuan had broken through to Earth class with his help, but he didn't succeed. This kind of situation often happened when other practitioners tried to break through on their own. It wasn't that easy to break through a barrier, especially a barrier like this. It was extremely difficult for a practitioner to break through a barrier, especially a barrier like this. Most of them had to try multiple times before they broke through, and people like Lin Yi who broke through on the first try were rare, except for the inheritors. Of course, breaking through with Lin Yi's help was a different story. Huaijuan let out a long breath, a trace of disappointment in his eyes. He knew his own situation very well. He'd failed at the last moment. He was about to break through to Earth class, but he didn't have enough chi to continue the breakthrough. Huaijuan had experienced situations like this before in his training, so he wasn't too surprised. Huaijuan smiled at the depressed look on Lin Yi's face. Captain Eagle, don't tell me this little setback's enough to make you depressed? It's normal for practitioners to fail to break through. Chapter 1900. Just a little bit more and I might have succeeded? Lin Yi smiled bitterly, but the amount of chi he'd compressed was the limit of what Lin Yi could handle. Any more and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to control it. Yeah, that means there's hope. If it doesn't work this time, we'll try again in the future. I'm just a lab rat anyways, and I'll be staying in Donghai from now on. It'll be convenient for us to see each other. Huaijuan smiled. You're right. Lin Yi nodded, feeling a little better. Huaijuan was right, he might not be able to do it this time, but there would be chances in the future. Lin Yi had thought it through as well. The second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery wasn't as smooth as the first stage, probably because he'd just started practicing it. The incantations for each stage weren't as detailed as the divisions of strength, but if you were to divide each stage into 10 stages, Lin Yi was only at the second stage of the second stage. He'd just reached the second stage and could barely use the incantations for the second stage. He was a far cry from being familiar with it. Previously, when he used the first level of the mental cultivation method to compress his true chi, he had already broken through to the first level of perfection. Naturally, he could control the true chi in his body freely, and he could even use his true chi to transmit his voice. However, if he wanted to use the second level of the mental cultivation method to do this, it would be quite impossible. Lin Yi was like a beginner when it came to the second stage. He hadn't even grasped the basics yet, so there was no way he could do anything with it. Lin Yi calmed down at the thought, remembering Jiao Lao's words. More haste, less speed. Indeed, the situation this time had proven that he only needed to be more familiar with the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. It should be possible to raise Huaijuan to the Earth class. Things that couldn't be done on the first stage were a lot easier on the second. Of course, Lin Yi wasn't too surprised. Lin Yi would have just stayed at the first stage until he was old if he couldn't make any progress with each stage. Why would he bother with the second stage if he was already familiar with it? I'll go back and consolidate my strength, and I'll try to break through on my own once I'm done. The next time I break through by myself. With your help, we might be able to break through in one go. Huaijuan said. I'm afraid it's impossible to try it myself. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. There is actually a drawback to helping you increase your strength. I didn't notice it before. But now, I've discovered that you can no longer cultivate on your own. Ah? Huaijuan paused. Lin Yi's words struck a chord with him. Huaijuan had tried to break through to the peak late phase of the golden class on his own after he got back, but nothing happened after a couple of attempts. He thought that he was busy with work. He couldn't calm his heart down, but now it seemed that this wasn't the case. Ling Shan and the others already know about it. I only found out about it later. I'm really sorry. Lin Yi explained as he looked at the stunned Huaijuan. Eagle, what are you talking about? My strength is all thanks to you. Not only that, you're the one who saved my life. Let's not talk about when we were on missions. How many times has our team been saved because of you? Even the last few times you've done me a favor that can't be measured with words. Huaijuan said. Mystic late phase peak, that's the dream of so many practitioners. Huaijuan wasn't praising, he was just stating the truth. Even a noble house would have a hard time producing a mystic late phase peak practitioner, let alone a regular practitioner. Of course, they wouldn't be able to compete with the hidden houses or the ancient sections. Huaijuan was from a noble house, so his vision was limited to the common world. As long as you don't have any psychological burden. Lin Yi nodded and looked at the sky outside. It's getting late, I'm going back. The two girls at home are going to check on me. Ah, let's go, I'll send you. Huaijuan laughed, but realized that he wasn't wearing anything when he stood up. He felt a little awkward. Wait for me, I'm going to change right away. Huaijuan sent Lin Yi to the villa in the Shuashang district, and found out where Lin Yi's house was. What surprised Lin Yi was that his Cherokee had been driven back, and was parked in the parking lot in the villa's yard. It seemed like the miss must have come back in a fit of anger because she couldn't find him. She had a key to the car as well. Lin Yi quickly took out his phone and turned it on. Lin Yi was worried that he'd be disturbed when he helped Huaijuan level up, so he turned his phone off. The miss must have called him a couple of times. Is sis-in-law angry? Huaijuan blinked as he looked at Lin Yi, who was smiling bitterly. What sis-in-law? It's not like you don't know my relationship with them. Lin Yi shrugged. Tang? Huaijuan was just about to say that Tang Yin wasn't here, but a voice interrupted him before he could finish his sentence. Young bro, so you're the one who kidnapped Shield bro? Yushu came running out of the yard before Huaijuan could finish. Mengyao and Yushu had just come back as well. Mengyao had been calling Lin Yi, but Lin Yi's phone was turned off. She'd waited for more than an hour at school and his phone was still turned off. Mengyao was both angry and worried, so she drove back first. Mengyao wasn't worried that something had happened to Lin Yi. What could possibly happen to him at school? Mengyao thought that Lin Yi might have gone out with Wang Xinyan, since they'd been together for the past couple of days. The thought of Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan together made Mengyao's heart feel like it was being squeezed by something. She was just about to call Lin Yi again when she heard the sound of a car parked outside the villa. The two turned around out of curiosity, only to see Lin Yi and Huaijuan getting out of the car, and Huaijuan making fun of her and Shu. Mengyao didn't know why, but her face only reddened. She wasn't angry at all. Huaijuan's next words, however, sent a chill down Mengyao's spine. Tang what? Wasn't it Tang Yin? Mengyao wanted to stop him, but Shu reacted faster than her, running out first. Mengyao let out a breath of relief. Yeah, he's looking for me. I'm helping him level up, but his phone's turned off. You guys can't reach me? Lin Yi said, not noticing that Huaijuan was halfway through his sentence. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1901. Hashtag X00A0 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 because it was a meaningless word to Lin Yi. Tang what? Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Yeah, we saw that your phone was turned off, so we drove back first. Meng Yao's heart relaxed a little at the sight of Lin Yi and Huaijuan coming back together. Even she didn't know why she felt so relaxed. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Could it be that she didn't want him to be with Xinyan? But Xiao Xiao had said yesterday that Lin Yi was allowed to find a first wife. What was he supposed to do with Wang Xinyan? Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Alright, I'll head back first then, Huaijuan said with a wave of his hand, getting into the car. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Okay, see you later. Lin Yi nodded. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Meng Yao and Yushu sighed in relief as they watched the Audi A6 drive away. Luckily Yushu reacted quickly, or else they wouldn't know how to explain Tang Yun. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Most of the people around Lin Yi had confessed, but Huaijuan hadn't returned to Songshan yet. Meng Yao decided that she'd have to give him a call when she got back and tell him not to spill the beans. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Lin Yi, let's eat together. Granny's son is ready, Meng Yao said, but her expression was much warmer. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. You drove the car back first. Are you angry? Lin Yi looked at Meng Yao and Yushu, but didn't see anything wrong with their faces. It was as if they weren't angry at all. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. No, we're a little tired, so we drove back first. You're in good health anyway, so it doesn't matter if you don't have a car. Meng Yao made up a random excuse. You better tell us when you're out next time, we don't want to wait for you at school. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. I did lose track of time today. Lin Yi nodded as he looked at Meng Yao. Was this concern for him? However, the eldest miss always had this kind of expression, so he couldn't tell what she was really thinking. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Meng Yao didn't say anything else as they entered the villa. Grandma's son knew that they were back, so she started putting the dishes on the table. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Grandma's son originally said that she would eat after Lin Yi and Meng Yao finished eating, but after Lin Yi and Meng Yao asked a few times, she ate with them. After all, there were only 4 people in the house and the table wasn't crowded. There was no need to separate. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 plus. In those tough years, Meng Yao and Yushu had always eaten with Grandma's son, and they were used to it. Now that Grandma's son suddenly became a housekeeper and had to separate, they weren't used to it. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Grandma's son, have you ever thought about finding another partner? Lin Yi suddenly remembered Falbert's call and asked casually. Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. Grandma's son paused and looked at Lin Yi in confusion. Mr. Lin, are you saying that you want me to get married again? Hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0 hashtag X00A0. You're already so old, and you have no one to rely on in the future. You should find another partner, Linny said. #X00A0 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 This. Mr. Lin, you want me to leave? Grandma's son didn't quite understand Lin Yi's meaning and thought that Lin Yi wanted her to leave. #X00A0 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 Lin Yi, what do you mean by this? Meng Yao was also a bit confused by Lin Yi's sudden question. She glared at Lin Yi and told him not to talk nonsense. She would be the first to disagree if he wanted to chase Grandma's son away. If Grandma's son hadn't taken them in during those difficult years, she, Shu, and even Lin Yi would have been found by Yu Lu and died without a burial place. #X00A0 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 Grandma's son, you misunderstood. I mean, it just so happens that I know a person who is also single. He is about the same age as you. I also talked to him about this a while ago. I want you to meet him. If you like, you can live together. It can be considered a companion. Linny said. #X00A0 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 #X00A 0 #X00A0 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 0A0 #X00A0 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 Grandma's son was talking about Lin Yi being a practitioner and being hunted down by House Yu. These things naturally couldn't be told to normal people, so Grandma's son rejected Lin Yi directly. #X00A0 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 This person isn't an outsider. Speaking of which, he's our housekeeper in Songshan. Linny smiled. We're all family. #X00A0 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 Linny, you're talking about Faubert? Meng Yao finally understood what Linny meant. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Grandma's son and thought about Faubert. Indeed, Faubert had always been single, but he really was a couple with Grandma's son. #X00A0 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 Grandma's son. You and Faubert are both single. You can be a couple. Yushu happily agreed. #X00A0 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 That's. Grandma's son wasn't as conflicted as before when she heard that Lin Yi was a housekeeper in Songshan and was also single. However, she hadn't thought about these things for a long time. Now that she was suddenly asked to find a man, she wasn't used to it. Mr. Lin, I know that you mean well, but I don't remember if I have a husband or a child, and I don't remember how they are. Plus, I haven't thought about these things. #X00A0 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 Haha. Then let's meet first. Let's leave everything to fate and get to know each other, Linny smiled. #X00A0 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 Then, I'll listen to Mr. Lin. Grandma's son said, but didn't expect too much. She'd gotten used to being alone after all these years, and she didn't want to waste Lin Yi's good intentions. #X00A0 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 On the morning of the 11th, Lin Yi drove Mengyao and Yushu to the economics building and parked the car back in the parking lot. He saw that it was about time, so he didn't go back to his dorm and went straight to the biology building. #X00A0 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 As expected, Bai Weituo, Song Xiaodao, and Zhao Xingji were already sitting in the third row, and Xinyan was still sitting in the window seat. The seat beside her was still empty. #X00A0 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 Lin Yi, over here. Bai Weituo chuckled as he pointed at the seat next to Xinyan. #X00A0 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 #X00A0. She didn't know why she was sitting here again, and she didn't know why she'd left a spot for Lin Yi. As far as she was concerned, Lin Yi wouldn't be sitting here again, would he? Otherwise she could have sat on the right and left 2 empty seats on the left. That way it would be impossible for Lin Yi to sit over. #X00A0 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 Lin Yi smiled and sat down beside Xinyan naturally. Lin Yi had an inexplicable fondness for Xinyan, perhaps because she was the first girl he'd met since coming to Songshan. Thank you for using China Mobile's mobile phone to read. Traffic is free except for listening to books. Passing by. Actually, being a passerby is a great profession. Scene 1, Annihilation 0. The OP didn't get any replies for a long time. The OP would feel like his presence was weak, and that he wasn't being followed by anyone at all. When a passerby said passing by, the OP would suddenly feel like he was being followed after all. Of course, his mood would improve and he'd feel how beautiful the world was, how fresh the air was, how much more food he'd eaten, his back no longer hurt, and how nimble his limbs were. I digressed. Scene 2, Desolation. When no one has posted or replied to a post for a long time, a passerby passed by and the post moved. People found something to talk about again, and so the OP came alive again. Flowers needed leaves to support them, and even the biggest movie needed passers-by. Passing by was one of the most important phrases to use when replying to a post. Actually, being a passerby is a great profession. Scene 1, Annihilation 0. The OP didn't get any replies for a long time. The OP would feel like his presence was weak, and that he wasn't being followed after all. When a passerby said passing by, the OP would suddenly feel like he was being followed after all. Of course, his mood would improve and he'd feel how beautiful the world was, how much more food he'd eaten, his back no longer hurt, and how nimble his limbs were. I digressed. Scene 2, Desolation. When no one has posted or replied to a post for a long time, a passerby passed by and the post moved. People found something to talk about again, and so the OP came alive again. Flowers needed leaves to support them, and even the biggest movie needed passers-by. Of course, passing by was one of the most important phrases to use when replying to a post. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1902. Their first encounter on the train had left a deep impression. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's personality, he wouldn't have bothered with Xinyan's business in the business district. Book Ocean Pavilion Net. I'm sorry about the day before yesterday, I made your girlfriend misunderstand. Xinyan saw Lin Yi sitting beside her and for some reason she felt relieved. It was as if she wanted him to sit beside her. But Xinyan didn't think that she had fallen in love with Lin Yi. Her thoughts were similar to Lin Yi's. The two of them seemed to be fated, and it could only be said that they had a good impression of each other. Xinyan, of course, didn't forget about her engagement. Since it was an engagement, it didn't matter whether she liked him or not. Oh, they're not my girlfriends, Lin Yi said. They're not? Xinyan paused, feeling a little excited. Weren't they? That's good. But Xinyan didn't know why she was so excited. Even if they weren't, Lin Yi still had girlfriends. Perhaps she was happy because Lin Yi treated her as a friend, and didn't hide anything from her? My elders asked me to take care of them. Lin Yi didn't lie to Xinyan. When he first came to Songshan, it was indeed old Lin who asked him to come. Book Ocean Pavilion Net. So that's how it is. You guys live together? Xinyan regretted asking the question. She wasn't a gossipy person. Why did she suddenly ask Lin Yi this question? It wasn't polite. Yeah, I bought a villa nearby and the three of us lived together with a butler. Linny nodded. Xinyan nodded. If that was the case, then it wasn't cohabitation, it was just sharing a room. The villa was so big, it wasn't much different from living in a dorm at school. Xinyan shook her head at the thought. Her thoughts were a little messy today. What was she thinking about all these random things for? At that moment, Boss Bai walked into the classroom and the classroom quieted down. Xinyan snapped out of her daze and looked at the podium. That's right, they're all here. I thought there would be people who would ask for leave to avoid military training. Boss Bai said casually, if you are really sick, I won't force you. However, a few years ago, a student pretended to be sick and directly disqualified me from the final exam. He had to repeat the exam with the next student. When everyone heard Boss Bai's words, they couldn't help but feel a chill. This old man was really ruthless. To recultivate with the next cohort, wouldn't that be equivalent to going to college for 5 years? However, thinking that Boss Bai must be an expert in medicine, it was impossible to pretend to be sick in front of him. 2 students in the classroom who were about to take out their medical records and ask for leave immediately stopped. Next, I'll rearrange the class leaders. Bai Weituo, you'll be the class leader, and Wang Xinyan, you'll be the vice class leader and study commissary. With that, Boss Bai didn't allow the students to question him at all. He moved on to the next thing. In a while, there will be a bus to take you to the military training, but our Donghai Industry University's military training has always been known for being the strictest. This time you'll be going to the border guards nearby, so be prepared. Wang Xinyan was a bit stunned. She looked at Lin Yi, not understanding how she had become the vice class leader and study commissary. Bai Weituo, on the other hand, had expected this result, so he didn't feel anything out of place. He only thought to himself, only big bro Lin can change my stubborn grandpa's mind, right? Everyone in the class had heard about the strictness of the military training in Donghai Industry University. The 2 students who had wanted to pretend to be sick had given up because they heard that the military training was too strict. It was said that this was real military training, and it was a completely different concept from the military training in high school. But after the training, their bodies were indeed strengthened. However, Coiling Tiger Wright looked at the nervous and scared students in the class with a disdainful look on his face. Coiling Tiger Wright was an elixir maker, but he was still a golden class cultivator. His body was much stronger than normal students, and no matter how crazy the military training was, he wouldn't feel any pressure. Okay, that's all. Let's gather in front of the teaching building of the biology department later. The military training is based on each department. There will be a transport vehicle to take you to the military training site. After saying that, Boss Bai was ready to leave. No way? We're going somewhere else? When the students in the class heard that they had to leave for the military training, they immediately became a little anxious. They also had other high school classmates who had applied for other universities, and their military training had already ended. However, they were all training in school. It was relatively rare for them to go directly to the army for military training. Yeah, let's go buy something delicious. We won't be able to buy anything if we go there. Another student said anxiously. Oh right, a reminder. Boss Bai was just about to leave when he turned around and reminded them, during the military training, you're not allowed to bring snacks, clothes, or personal belongings. We'll provide you with food and lodging, and you'll have to hand in all your belongings and return them after the training. No way. Boss Bai's words made those students who were about to go shopping feel discouraged. At around 10 o'clock in the morning, rows of military buses stopped in front of the biology faculty's teaching building. The medicine faculty was relatively small, with less than 30 people in total, so they took a separate bus. After everyone had boarded the bus, it started slowly and drove toward the military training site. Military training was based on classes, so every bus was filled with students from a class. Some specializations had more students in their classes, so there were even 3 students squeezed into one seat. As for the medical specialization, the entire specialization sat in one bus, and there were still empty seats. Linny was wondering if he should still sit with Xinyan when he saw Bai Weituo, Song Xiaodao, and Zhao Xingji sitting in the last row, with other students sitting next to them. It was obvious that they didn't want to leave a seat for Linny. Linny couldn't help but smile bitterly as he sat next to Xinyan. We're sitting together again, what a coincidence. Linny was a little awkward, it was a little too obvious. Yeah? Xinyan blushed, thinking that it wasn't a coincidence at all, it was clearly intentional. But she didn't say it. Right Coiling Tiger, yellow hair and purple hair, sat in a seat far away from Lin Yi. Right Coiling Tiger hated and feared Lin Yi, and wanted to cause trouble for Lin Yi, but he wasn't strong enough. He could only endure it for now. In fact, with the hidden house Yu's strength, sending out another Earth-class late-phase peak wasn't a hard thing to do, but the problem was, even if they did send this person, would they be able to do anything to Lin Yi? Chapter 1903. If they were killed by Lin Yi in one move, it would be a huge loss. House Yu did have a sky-class master, but without the approval of the ancient sects, who would dare to let them out? The Heavenly Elixir sect had specifically reminded the Hidden Right family about this matter. Although Sky Elixir sect was growing stronger and had surpassed the other ancient sects, they still didn't have the ability to destroy the other ancient sections. Naturally, they couldn't be too arrogant. Has your family's matter been resolved? On the way, the other students were chatting and laughing. Only Xinyan and Lin Yi were quiet. Lin Yi felt a little awkward and found a random topic. Yes, it's been resolved? Xinyan thought about her background and sighed. Is the engagement with House Kong still there? Lin Yi asked. Yeah. Xinyan nodded. She didn't know why, but she was frustrated. She didn't like this marriage before, but she didn't want to marry Xiaolong as much as she did now. She didn't want to marry Xiaolong anymore. You haven't broken the engagement? Lin Yi was surprised, but he remembered that Xiao family and House Kong were in a similar situation. Although they both had the support of hidden houses, many masters had died. The possibility of the two joining forces was very high. No, it's more or less settled. I'm in university and I'm in Donghai. I'm afraid Xiaolong will come looking for me soon. Xinyan smiled bitterly. You don't want to marry him? Lin Yi asked. So what if I don't want to? I'm just a sacrifice for my family's interests. Xinyan shook her head. She was disappointed and even a little dull. You don't have to marry him if you don't want to. Lin Yi sympathized with Xinyan. If Xinyan married a good man, Lin Yi would bless her. But if she married House Kong, according to Lin Yi's calculations, House Kong would be destroyed by him sooner or later. Wouldn't she become a widow if she married them? I don't want to marry. Do I have to marry you? Xinyan smiled bitterly, but for some reason she made a joke. Wang Xinyan's face burned as soon as she heard that. She wasn't a person who liked to joke, but it made her a little embarrassed to say it out loud. Sure. Lin Yi smiled. I'm just joking with you. Xinyan's face turned even redder at Lin Yi's reply, but she was a little pleasantly surprised. It wasn't as if Lin Yi didn't look down on her at all. Lin Yi's cold demeanor earlier. Wang Xinyan still thought that she wasn't attracted to her at all. There were some men who would act cold to attract attention when they were pursuing a girl, but Wang Xinyan knew that Lin Yi wasn't that type of person. Lin Yi's coldness was really indifferent. It was as if he had seen through everything. He didn't take it to heart. I'm just joking. I can't kill Xiaolong, can I? Lin Yi laughed. You don't seem to be afraid of House Kong. Yes. Aren't you afraid? Xinyan suddenly remembered that the man in front of her wasn't a normal person either. He'd kicked House Xiao and House Kong out of the noble house ranks, and Uncle Pai Yang Yang, and the others had either died at his hands or his lackey's hands. But he was still alive and well. Even though the Kong and Xiao families had strong support, they had no choice but to maintain the prosperity of their families through marriage. You don't really want me to kill Xiaolong, do you? Lin Yi asked in a low voice. Xinyan paused. She shook her head even though she did think about it for a moment. She really wanted to ask Lin Yi to kill Xiaolong, but that idea was too crazy. It'd be fine if Lin Yi killed the guards, but if he really killed Xiaolong, wouldn't there be a lot of trouble? With that thought, Xinyan gave up on the idea. Kill him and marry Kong Ming Ming? That bastard is even worse. Then kill them all, Lin Yi said. Xinyan didn't know what to say. Lin Yi looked like a gentleman. Was he a violent maniac? Kill them all just like that? Meng Yao and Yushu sat in the other car. It was an economics car. Yao Yao, it's tough without Shield Bro's help, right? Yushu missed Lin Yi a little. She probably wouldn't be able to see him during this time. We can do it without him, Meng Yao said. Shu, we need to learn not to rely on him too much. He'll leave one day. How can he stay in our villa forever? We're living in his villa now, Yushu said. Shield Bro won't chase us away if we don't leave. We're already in university. We'll grow up eventually, we'll have our own families and careers. Are we still going to rely on Lin Yi then? Meng Yao sighed as she looked at the trees passing by outside the window, a little sad. She felt that she had matured quite a bit in this half a year, and was no longer that stubborn miss who didn't know anything anymore. Lin Yi had taught her the value of friendship, family, and love, especially during those difficult times. It was a precious memory. Yao Yao, why don't you be Shield Bro's first wife? That way you can be with him forever? Yushu suggested. Aren't you a second wife? You can be with him, right? Mengyao smiled. Yushu's eyes flashed with worry. Okay, I'll try my best. Mengyao looked at Shu strangely. She felt like something was wrong with Shu today. Wasn't she always full of confidence? Why did she say she'll try her best? It's nothing, the weather's pretty good today, Shu said. Mengyao looked at Shu, confused. She didn't know what she was talking about. After the cars left the school, they drove onto the national highway. The more they drove, the more secluded they got. Eventually they got onto a dirt road. The car's shock absorbers were pretty good, but the bumpy ride was too much for the spoiled students. They started whining, regretting that they didn't bring a cushion. Mengyao and Yushu, on the other hand, were perfectly composed. They wouldn't have been able to take this pain half a year ago, but they'd gone to the snowy valley once, and they'd been through all sorts of hardships. This was nothing compared to it. The two looked at each other and smiled. This was a rare life experience. Xinyan wasn't a spoiled child, but she'd never suffered like this before. She was still a little carsick. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to listen to her MP3 player on the train and plane. Music could reduce the dizziness. To be continued. Chapter 1904. Blurg. Xinyan felt a little nauseated. She didn't bring her MP3 player, and since they weren't allowed to bring their personal belongings during the training, she naturally wouldn't break the school's rules. What's wrong? Lin Yi turned around to see that Xinyan's face was a little pale, and there was a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. She looked like she was in pain. I'm a little nauseous, motion sick, I want to vomit. But as soon as the words left his mouth, a puddle of white liquid came out of his mouth and landed on Lin Yi's pants. Lin Yi didn't move away, nor did he look down on Xinyan. He reached out to press on her acupuncture points but hesitated halfway. Xinyan still wanted to vomit, so Lin Yi didn't hesitate any longer. He put his hand under Xinyan's shirt and pressed on the acupoint on her stomach, sending a pure stream of pure qi over to calm the urge to vomit. Xinyan's carsick was obviously caused by her stomach being shaken, and that was why she felt like vomiting. Lin Yi only needed to straighten out her stomach and liver and she'd be fine. However, Bai Weitua felt that the carriage was a little too monotonous, and he wanted to sing a song with his classmates to ease the monotony of the journey. But when he walked past Lin Yi, he saw Xinyan's head buried in Lin Yi's chest, and Lin Yi's hand under her clothes. Bai Weitua was shocked. Xinyan's vomiting wasn't loud and no one in the carriage noticed, but Bai Weitua stood in the middle of the carriage and made another sound, drawing the attention of the other students. They all turned to look, and the ones who were closer saw Lin Yi and Xinyan's states clearly. They were all stunned. Isn't that it? My goddess. She's taken just like that. A guy sighed, looking up at the sky. Hearing his sigh, the other people's gazes became even more ambiguous. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. This Bai Weitua, of all the times he could have come, he just had to come when he was treating Xinyan's vomiting. There was no way he could explain this. However, Lin Yi was not a person who liked to explain things to others. In the dormitory, sometimes he would explain to Bai Weitua and the others. That was because they were his roommates. Lin Yi treated them as his friends. That was why he would explain to them. But other than that, he counted on Lin Yi to explain to others. That was simply an unrealistic thing. Bai Weitua saw Lin Yi's dumbfounded expression. Knowing that he was in trouble, he quickly walked to the front of the car and said to his classmates, "We're only halfway through the journey. Let's sing a song. It's our first group activity. What do you think?" This time, everyone's attention was diverted by Bai Weitua. Of course, although everyone was a little curious about Lin Yi's boldness, this kind of thing was also common on campus. Everyone had also familiarized themselves with the campus in the past 2 days. They also had a better understanding of the young couples who met in the woods and the swimming pool. This kind of thing was nothing between couples. So what if they touched each other? There were real fights in the swimming pool. Bai Weitua took the lead and sang a song by Su Shirhan, a song by Su Shirhan. The young people were all familiar with it and they all liked her. Bai Weitua started singing and the others started singing. Of course, except for Right Coiling Tiger and the others. Right Coiling Tiger was a little depressed when he heard Su Shirhan's song. It wasn't that he didn't have the idea of hitting on Su Shirhan. In fact, he went to ask Su Shirhan out and he even wanted to ask her to play with him through her manager, but he was rejected. Right Coiling Tiger was very depressed because of this. He wanted to forcefully kidnap Su Shirhan, but he didn't think that Su Shirhan's bodyguard was a master. Although Right Coiling Tiger didn't give up, he didn't have the chance to get close to Su Shirhan. He could only give up for now. Of course, Lin Yi didn't sing because he didn't know how to sing at all. Su Shirhan came to his house to sing a few times, but Lin Yi didn't participate. Under Lin Yi's chi, Wang Xinyan's face looked a lot better. She let out a sigh of relief and raised her head from Lin Yi's arms, but when she remembered that Lin Yi's hand was still on her stomach, her face turned red again. "I'm sorry, it was a misunderstanding." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't want to explain to others, but he had to explain to Wang Xinyan. No matter what, Wang Xinyan was his good friend, and it wouldn't look good for a girl like her to have a misunderstanding. "Thank you." Wang Xinyan was a little shy, but she wasn't angry at Lin Yi at all. Lin Yi was a very good doctor, and Wang Xinyan knew that from the beginning. Back on the business street, when Lin Yi saved Lu Jinhu, Wang Xinyan knew that. And so, Xinyan knew that Lin Yi didn't have any other intentions. He was just trying to help her. It was embarrassing that he'd touched her stomach, but he'd done it out of good intentions. Why would she blame him? Lin Yi let go of his hand and pinched Wang Xinyan's forehead a couple of times, and Wang Xinyan felt refreshed. She didn't feel nauseous anymore, and the dizziness from before was gone as well. She felt a lot better in an instant. It was amazing. This man really was good. Wang Xinyan looked at Lin Yi, a complicated look in her eyes. Lin Yi wasn't just good at martial arts either. He'd been able to get the scammer's money back on the train, and then switch Zhang Duopan and Fangan his wine. This wasn't something a normal person could do. Lin Yi's skills were on par with a magician's or a thief's. But this wasn't even Lin Yi's specialty. Lin Yi's medical skills were something that Wang Xinyan couldn't help but gasp in amazement. To be able to make her sober from motion sickness in such a short amount of time, that was no ordinary feat. It was just a small ailment, but it was hard to cure it completely. She'd have to vomit for a long time every time she got carsick, and she'd have to drink a couple bottles of Huoxiang Jingqi water to recover. But all Lin Yi did was rub his abdomen and forehead. What amazing medical skills! If that wasn't enough, then Lin Yi's martial arts skills were even more amazing. Uncle Pai Yang Yang and the others were from hidden houses. They'd only be sending themselves to their deaths in front of Lin Yi and his lackeys. Just what kind of person was he? He was just a normal student in a university. She wouldn't have noticed the difference between Lin Yi and the other students if she didn't know about all this. She felt Lin Yi's hand move away from her forehead as she was lost in her thoughts. She felt a sudden reluctance to part with Lin Yi's hand. She didn't know if it was because she didn't want to let go of that refreshing feeling, or because she didn't want to let go of Lin Yi's hand. To be continued. Chapter 1905. What's there to thank me for? We're the ones who got misunderstood. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. So what if it's a misunderstanding? Xinyan shook her head as she noticed the white stain on Lin Yi's pants, along with the mucus from her own stomach. It was a disgusting mess. Xinyan hadn't eaten breakfast this morning, only drinking a bag of milk. She vomited half of it on Lin Yi's pants, feeling guilty. "I'm sorry, your pants." "Oh, it's nothing." Lin Yi didn't feel disgusted at all, it wasn't a big deal at all. Back when he was on a mission with Huaijuan, Lin Yi didn't feel disgusted at all, not to mention the mucus from poisonous flowers and plants. He'd seen it all before, let alone vomit. "I'll help you wash it?" Xinyan said, a little embarrassed. "I heard they're giving us camouflage uniforms when we get there. I'll change out of them when we get back." Lin Yi said casually. "Yeah." Xinyan didn't say anything else, but what happened just now had brought the two of them closer. The two had known each other for a long time, but the intimate contact this time, despite the fact that it was a therapy session, made them feel a lot closer. Bai Weitua led the group to sing a couple of songs before walking to the back of the car. The group was tired after a couple of songs and needed a break, but Bai Weitua couldn't help but turn around when he passed by Lin Yi's seat. What he saw shocked him even more. It was on Lin Yi's pants. There was a puddle of milky white, dried mucus. Bai Weitua had seen them do it a couple of times before. His thoughts weren't too pure either, so he thought of a possibility. Wasn't Wang Xinyan looking down just now? Could it be that she was helping Lin Yi? And then she choked and vomited on Lin Yi's pants? He thought he heard Xinyan retching just now. It had to be because of this. But this time Bai Weitua didn't dare to make a ruckus. He just gave Lin Yi a thumbs up and said in a low voice, "Congratulations, brother Lin. You got sister-in-law to help you so quickly. Hee in a place with so many people, awesome." Question mark. Lin Yi was stunned, not knowing what Bai Weitua was talking about. Xinyan didn't know what was going on either. However, she could still understand the word sister-in-law. She immediately blushed and lowered her head, not daring to look at Lin Yi and Bai Weitua. Haha, I'll go back first. I won't bother you anymore. When Bai Weitua saw Lin Yi's stunned look, he thought he had seen through him, so he quickly walked back. He told Song Xiaodao and Zhao Xingji about what he saw and heard in a low voice. Just now. What did he say? Xinyan asked after Bai Weitua left. Although she knew that what Bai Weitua said was definitely not something good, she still asked out of curiosity. Besides, she and Lin Yi had nothing to do with each other and they were good friends. She wasn't afraid of anything. Just now. You said you helped me. Help me with what? Lin Yi was confused as well. But when he looked down he saw the white mucus on his pants. He suddenly understood and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wang Xinyan wasn't an innocent girl who didn't know anything. She had health classes in high school and she heard about some things from her classmates. At this moment she followed Lin Yi's gaze to Lin Yi's pants, and she finally understood what Bai Weitua meant. She was lying on Lin Yi's body just now, and he thought that she was helping Lin Yi. Thinking of this, Wang Xinyan blushed even redder. Why was this Bai Weitua's thinking so complicated? But there was no way to explain this. The more she explained, the worse it would get. Seeing Wang Xinyan's expression, Lin Yi knew that this girl understood what Bai Weitua meant. He shook his head helplessly. I'll explain to him later. Forget it, it's not a big deal. I don't need anyone to do anything to me. Wang Xinyan shook her head and stopped Lin Yi from explaining. It's not good for your reputation? Lin Yi said. Chapter 1906. I think he's from the border defense, but I didn't know he was from here. Yushu had never been to her brother's army before, so she was surprised. At this moment, Qin Yutian started speaking. Hello, freshman. I'm the person in charge here, Qin Yutian. I'm also the head instructor of this military training. Donghai Industry University's military training has always been the strictest. Here, I will train you according to the requirements of our army. This is a test of your willpower and also a strengthening of your body. In the days to come, I will arrange for you to train new recruits. Those who are the same age as you or even those who are a year younger than you can do it. I don't want any of you to fall behind. Although the students knew that the military training would be strict, they couldn't help but complain when they heard that Qin Yutian was training them according to the requirements of new recruits. But thinking about it, it wasn't too bad. If it was according to the requirements of veterans, it would be even more difficult for them. This time, I will also complete your training with other instructors. I will be the instructor of one of your classes. Qin Yutian said. All instructors get into position. Bring your class to collect camouflage uniforms and daily necessities. Arrange the dormitories. After dinner, meet here at 6 o'clock. Yes? A row of instructors standing not far away from the stage responded in unison. What surprised Lin Yi even more was that Qin Yutian became the medical instructor. When Qin Yutian saw that Lin Yi was in the group, he was shocked and embarrassed. Once upon a time Lin Yi was his instructor, and even now Lin Yi was still his boss, someone he respected in his heart. He didn't have the ability to be Lin Yi's instructor. He knew Lin Yi's ability very well. It was a coincidence that he'd become a medical instructor. He'd heard that it was the best major in the school and so he'd chosen it. He hadn't expected Lin Yi to be here as well. Lin Yi didn't care about going to university. He only wanted to accompany Meng Yao and Yushu, so Lin Yi didn't tell Qin Yutian where he went to school and which major he signed up for. Meng Yao and Yushu, on the other hand, didn't have the chance to talk to Qin Yutian too much because they had to escape with Lin Yi. The only time they met was in the hospital, and after that, Qin Yutian went back to the army. They didn't have the chance to talk about these things. Lin Yi smiled at Qin Yutian and made a shushing gesture. Qin Yutian naturally understood that Lin Yi didn't want to expose his identity. This put Qin Yutian at ease. Lin Yi wasn't someone who was easy to talk to, but he was very easy to talk to his friends. Qin Yutian brought the 20 or so medical students to a row of houses. This is your dorm, boys and girls share the same bed. You must take off your clothes when you sleep at night, and you must wake up when you hear the number in the middle of the night. Now, guys and girls, come and get your camouflage uniforms and necessities. What Qin Yutian said was what he always said to the students during military training. Although he rose in rank due to his contributions, he started from the lowest rank as an officer. He had been an instructor for these students for many years, so he said these words casually. but after he said it he felt that something was wrong. There was only one girl in the medical faculty. In the past, there wasn't a single girl in the medical faculty. Although there were more boys than girls in the classes Chen Yutian taught before, there was never a situation where there was only one girl. It should be known that when the university divided students into classes according to their major, they would also distribute the number of boys and girls in a balanced way. Although there were very few girls in majors like computer science and office automation, there would still be 8 to 10 girls in a class of 30. Even if it was a little less, there would definitely be more than one girl. When there were a lot of girls, it wasn't a big deal to sleep with guys at night. After all, they were all wearing clothes and the girls would always be in a group far away from the guys. But this was the first time Chen Yutian encountered a situation where there was only one girl. He was in a difficult position. How was he supposed to live here? Was he supposed to let a girl sleep with a bunch of guys at night? It was fine even if there was one more guy to keep her company. This way, a girl couldn't go to the bathroom or take a shower without someone to keep her company. It was inconvenient. Chen Yutian glanced at the name list in his hand and said, Wang Xinyan, you're the only girl in the class, and it might be inconvenient for you to rest at night. Do you want me to transfer you to another class? Wang Xinyan froze. To be honest, it was inconvenient for her to be the only girl in the class, but at least there were a few familiar classmates and her best friend Lin Yi. If she was transferred to a class full of strangers, she would feel even more uncomfortable. Seeing Wang Xinyan in a daze, Bai Weitua stood up and said, reporting to the instructor, I'm the class monitor, Bai Weitua. Wang Xinyan is Lin Yi's girlfriend, there's no inconvenience. He was the class monitor and naturally he had to stand up at this time. Besides, Lin Yi was his big brother, and Wang Xinyan was his best friend. The vice monitor was Wang Xinyan, and it was inappropriate for Wang Xinyan to report herself. It was better for him, the class monitor, to take the lead. Bai Weitua had gotten the military training rules before, and he knew how to report to the instructor, so he did it meticulously. Chen Yutian looked at Lin Yi in surprise. As expected, Wang Xinyan was standing together with Lin Yi. He was puzzled. Since when did Wang Xinyan become Lin Yi's girlfriend? However, he saw Wang Xinyan's blushing face and Lin Yi didn't say anything, so he nodded. Alright, Bai Weitua returned to the team. Since that's the case, get the camouflage uniforms and supplies. We'll eat at the canteen at 5 and be back here at 6. Yes. Bai Weitua replied and returned to the team. At this time, some soldiers used a pickup truck to pull a truck full of supplies. Chen Yutian waved at Bai Weitua, asking him to help distribute the supplies. After collecting the supplies, the students went to the terrace house to rest. The terrace house was actually a large shared bed. The conditions weren't very good, but it was arranged this way to train everyone's will of hardships. Chapter 1907. Xinyan snapped back to her senses after taking the supplies. She'd been mistaken as Lin Yi's girlfriend again, but it wasn't the first time. Big bro Lin, why don't you take Xinyan to a place to change? We guys are too lazy to go to the washroom to change, so we'll just close the door and change in the house. Bai Weitua said as he saw Lin Yi walk in with Xinyan. All right. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly. She wanted him to take Xinyan to get changed? Where would they go to change? There's a public washroom not too far from here, I think they go there to change. Xinyan saw the frown on Lin Yi's face, and understood what Lin Yi was thinking. Public washroom? Lin Yi paused and turned his head. There was indeed a public restroom not too far from his camp, 2 camps away from him. There was a long line for the girls though. There were fewer people on the boys' side, but there was a long line for the girls. Lin Yi understood immediately. Most guys didn't care, and even if they didn't go to the washroom, they'd just find a place to change their clothes. Girls, on the other hand, wouldn't change in front of so many people. But how long would it take for Xinyan to wait in line? Xinyan, on the other hand, could see that it was troublesome as well. Girls took longer to change than guys too, so the line would probably take a few hours. Maybe you can hide behind the house and I'll keep a lookout? Lin Yi looked at the back of the townhouse. There was a fence, but there was nothing behind it other than a cement ditch. It was very clean with not even a speck of mud in it. Xinyan hesitated, feeling a little embarrassed at first, but then she remembered that Lin Yi had touched her stomach. What was there to be embarrassed about? There were a lot of people in the washroom too. Xinyan nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you. Xinyan jumped into the ditch carefully, not because she was afraid of Lin Yi peeking. She didn't know why, but she had this strange trust in Lin Yi. She jumped into the ditch because she didn't want anyone to see her. She quickly took off her clothes in the gutter and looked at the bra she was wearing. She hesitated for a moment. She'd have to train later and she'd have to sleep with her clothes on at night. It'd be very uncomfortable to wear the bra, and it'd be troublesome to take it off again. Might as well take it off now. With that in mind, Xinyan unbuttoned her bra and took it off, placing it on top of the top she'd just taken off. She was just about to put her tank top back on when an irritating autumn wind blew at her, sending her bra flying into the air. Xinyan's bra didn't have any silicone in it, and it didn't have any massage functions. It was just a normal light type. The camp was very empty too. Ah! Xinyan yelped as she looked at her bra being blown away. She reached out to grab it. Lin Yi had his back turned, waiting for Xinyan to change her clothes. It wasn't that he didn't like Xinyan and he wanted to peek, but Lin Yi didn't think it was right. He was a man of principles and so he didn't turn around. But Xinyan's scream gave Lin Yi a fright. Xinyan wouldn't be in trouble, would she? Or would some gangster come over? Lin Yi quickly turned around and looked in Xinyan's direction. In actuality, Lin Yi had turned his head around so easily because Xinyan was standing in the gutter. There were tall stone steps blocking his view, and as long as he crouched down, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to see her at all. But then, Xinyan got up to grab her bra, her arms spread wide, and the white of her chest entered Lin Yi's line of sight. Lin Yi gulped. There was only one thought in his mind when he saw Xinyan's chest. So big, so white. He didn't think that Xinyan's chest wouldn't look that big when she wore it, but when she took it off, it was full of assets. It wasn't as big as shoes, but it was at least a few levels bigger than Miss. In fact, this was also the result of Xinyan wearing a thin bra. Xinyan didn't purposely squeeze her chest, and she usually wore casual clothes. Of course it wouldn't be seen. Seeing Lin Yi turn around, Xinyan was stunned. Her hands were raised in the air and she forgot to pull them back. She didn't know what to do. But the next moment, Xinyan understood what Lin Yi was looking at. Her face reddened as she covered her chest and crouched down, not daring to come out of the gutter. She didn't dare to come out. Xinyan's face reddened as she realized what Lin Yi was looking at. Lin Yi finally understood why Xinyan was screaming, and what she was trying to do with her wings spread. Her bra had been blown away by the autumn wind, and not only had it flown away, it had flown all the way to the rooftop of the house. Lin Yi was speechless. He'd wanted to wait for Xinyan to change her clothes and pick it up himself. After all, it wasn't a good idea for him to pick it up, but now he really had to do it himself. Xinyan couldn't do it at all. Shaking his head, Lin Yi flew to the roof. The row house was tall, but it wasn't much in Lin Yi's eyes. It only took a few leaps for him to reach the roof. Xinyan's bra was hanging on a piece of debris on the roof. Lin Yi picked up the bra and a gust of wind blew against his face again. This time it brought with it a real fragrance like the body fragrance of a young girl. It was very pleasant. Lin Yi paused and then realized that it was the fragrance of Xinyan's bra. The scent sent a shiver down Lin Yi's spine. It felt cool and refreshing. Xinyan wasn't someone who liked to put on makeup, and he could tell that she didn't use perfume or anything like that from how she usually wore no makeup. Could it be the legendary body fragrance? Lin Yi wasn't sure. As he was thinking, he heard someone calling him from below. Big brother Lin? Bai Weitua finished changing and walked out of the row house. He raised his head and saw Lin Yi standing on the beam, not knowing what he was doing. Bai Weitua? Lin Yi turned around and saw Bai Weitua, but his hand was still holding Xinyan's bra. He felt a little awkward. Bai Weitua also saw the bra in Xinyan's hand. His admiration for Lin Yi was like the yellow river flowing from the sky into the sea, never to return. Big brother Lin, you're amazing, you're amazing. You're doing it with your sis-in-law on the roof. You're so much better than those car shock bro and boobs bro. You're the roof bro. Bai Weitua gave a thumbs up. He had never seen a couple do it on the roof. Chapter 1908. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor, Nyoibo Studio Ugh. You're thinking too much. Lin Yi sweated. I went to the house just to pick up. Xinyan's in the gutter? Gutter? That's still pretty fierce. Bai Weitua said. Lin Yi knew that there was no point in trying to explain himself. He didn't say anything else as he jumped out of the house and went to the gutter behind the house. Xinyan had already put on her clothes, but her face was still a little red, especially when Lin Yi came back with her bra. She lowered her head in embarrassment. Xinyan told herself that it was just a misunderstanding, and that it was nothing. She'd waited for Lin Yi to come back, but now that Linny had come back she was a little embarrassed. Here? Linny said as he handed the bra to Xinyan. I don't want it anymore. It's yours. Xinyan was already embarrassed, and she felt even more embarrassed when Linny handed it back to her. She didn't want it because she was shy and she didn't want to take it back. That "it's yours" was just something that came out of her mouth, but she regretted it the moment she said it. She was a girl, how could she give a guy a used bra? Wasn't that a little too intimate? What? Linny didn't know what to say. She gave it to him? What did that mean? Linny rubbed his nose as he looked at the bra in his hands. He didn't know what to do with it. Linny knew that he wasn't some kind of underwear thief, nor was he some kind of perverted underwear collector, but the smell of the bra was really nice. Should he keep it? It's nothing, Xinyan said, feeling even more embarrassed at the way he was looking at her bra. She snatched it back and stuffed it into her pocket. Didn't you give it to me? Linny paused, surprised that Xinyan had snatched the bra away. Xinyan stomped her foot angrily. She wanted to stuff Lin Yi's mouth with her own. If it weren't for her own bra, she would have shoved it into Lin Yi's mouth. Would you die if you spoke less? I don't want to give it to you again. Xinyan had no choice but to say it, but things between the two were too intimate. Lin Yi scratched his head, a bitter smile on his face. It's fine if you don't want to send me off. Let's go. Xinyan picked up the clothes she changed out of, ready to leave. Wait. Lin Yi stopped her. What's wrong? Xinyan turned her head around, wondering if Lin Yi really wanted her bra. If he insisted, should she give it to him or not? I haven't changed yet. They're all done. If I go back and change, wouldn't I be a monkey? Lin Yi pointed at his clothes. Oh. Xinyan sighed in relief. She felt bad for misunderstanding Lin Yi. She was right. How could he be that kind of pervert? If that were the case, he'd be more than happy to go along with the flow when people mistook her as his girlfriend. He wouldn't even bother explaining himself. Xinyan felt a little guilty and shy at that thought. Then, I'll keep a lookout for you. Okay. Lin Yi nodded and jumped into the drain. But Lin Yi was a lot faster than Xinyan. He was done in a blink of an eye. Let's go, I'm done. That fast? Xinyan was surprised. I'm used to it. Lin Yi smiled. I didn't mean it. I heard you yelling, and when I turned around, I saw. Stop it. Xinyan's face reddened again. She glared at Lin Yi angrily, stomping her foot. I forgot all about it. Lin Yi looked at Xinyan. He wasn't expecting a quiet girl like her to get so worked up. He shrugged. I forgot too. Forget my ass. Don't talk about it again. Xinyan humphed. Okay. Lin Yi didn't dare say anything else since he was in the wrong. The two came to the front of the bungalow to see Bai Weitua and his classmates sitting in groups of twos and threes, resting and chatting. Bai Weitua rushed over when he saw Xinyan's blushing face. Boss, you're really something, he said in admiration. You're really something, boss? Don't talk nonsense. Lin Yi glared at him. I know. Only Zhao Xingji Song Xiaodao and I know. The others don't know. Bai Weitua smiled, but the others have probably guessed it too. Indeed, when the others saw Xinyan and Lin Yi coming out from the back of the house, they all had an ambiguous look on their faces. This little bastard Lin Yi sure is enjoying life. Such a pretty girl, and he just let her be your cauldron. The yellow hair said with a sigh. Humph, I'll let Lin Yi be arrogant for a while. When I become a second-rank refiner, I'll be able to sit in the position of an elder in the House of Yu. I won't be able to send the masters of the House of Yu to kill Lin Yi, but I can do it in secret. Coiling Tiger of the Right hated Lin Yi to the bone. Besides, when I become a second-rank refiner, I'll be able to refine countless pills. I'll be able to make a fortune in the hidden auction. It won't be hard to get the Blood Cloak underworld people to kill him. Yes. The purple hair nodded. Master Yu, you're the one with the foresight. Let this Lin Yi be arrogant for a while. Arrogant? We can't fight him with our strength, but we can use other methods to annoy him and give him some trouble. It'll be fun in school. Coiling Tiger of the Right said. Aren't you afraid that Lin Yi will attack us? The yellow hair thought of Lin Yi and felt a chill down his spine. In Boss Bai's class he wouldn't be giving face to Boss Bai. If he doesn't give face to Boss Bai, that person from the Sky Elixir sect won't let it go. Knowing Boss Bai's identity? If Lin Yi dares to touch a hair of mine, it'll be suicide. I'd love for him to touch me. Coiling Tiger of the Right sneered. What Boss Bai hates the most is people from families and sects putting on airs in front of him and bullying him. Hiss. The yellow hair and purple hair knew that Boss Bai wasn't simple. Otherwise, why would the hidden house of the right send Coiling Tiger of the Right to school? But they didn't expect Boss Bai to be this powerful. Even the Sky Elixir sect respected him. Just who was this old man? Lin Yi, naturally, didn't know that Coiling Tiger of the Right was looking for trouble with him again. He saw that everyone in the class was looking at him and Xinyan strangely, so he brought Xinyan back to the terrace house first. Chapter 1909. Xinyan, sister-in-law, was strong as Lin Yi was, he couldn't do anything to his classmates. He couldn't just beat them all up, could he? It wasn't until he got back that Lin Yi realized that the bed was already filled with luggage and blankets, but there was an empty space in the innermost part. Evidently, Bai Weitua had left it for himself and Xinyan. Lin Yi didn't say anything and put his luggage on top of it. Xinyan, on the other hand, sat in the innermost seat, hugging her legs and curled up on the bed. She was silent, not sure what she was thinking. Lin Yi didn't know how to comfort Xinyan. After all, something so embarrassing had happened, and Lin Yi would only make things more awkward. "Come take a walk with me," Xinyan said to Lin Yi after a while. "All right." Lin Yi didn't ask why and just nodded in agreement. Anything Xinyan asked for now, Lin Yi would do as long as he could. Of course, this was based on the fact that Lin Yi had a good impression of Xinyan, and that she was a friend. If it were someone random, Lin Yi wouldn't care. Who asked her to be careless? The two left the room, not attracting any attention from their classmates. They were all sitting on the floor playing cards or chatting. Lin Yi and Xinyan turned to the gutter behind the room. There was no one there. However, the two of them walked halfway when they suddenly stopped their footsteps. There was a moaning sound coming from the gutter. Xinyan's face reddened and Lin Yi felt a little awkward as well. He naturally knew what the sound was and turned to the source. It was probably coming from the gutter behind another row house not too far away. There was a partition between them and they couldn't see what was going on over there, but it sounded like a couple sprinting. Wang Xinyan couldn't see it, but it was enough to embarrass her. She couldn't help but remember the weird looks her classmates gave her when she and Lin Yi walked out from the back. "Why don't we go somewhere else?" Lin Yi sighed. "These people have good stamina. They haven't eaten lunch and dinner hasn't started yet. How can they still have the energy to do that?" "Nah, I'll just sit here for a bit," Xinyan said, afraid that she'd get laughed at again if she left the room. She covered her ears with her hands. "All right." Lin Yi smiled bitterly as he accompanied Xinyan to sit on the stone steps of the gutter. The wind blew past and Xinyan's scent was refreshing. Lin Yi felt very comfortable after taking a whiff of it. Lin Yi closed his eyes when Xinyan didn't say anything, starting to enjoy the moment as well. The noise quieted down after a while, and then came the sound of clothes being put on. Lin Yi nudged Xinyan with his wrist. "All right, it's quiet now. That guy's a fast shooter?" Xinyan blinked but quickly understood what Lin Yi was getting at. She glared at Lin Yi. "Fast shooter? Was he not fast?" Lin Yi smiled bitterly. What was wrong with him? Why was his mouth so fast? Did he just say that to Xinyan like that? Lin Yi hadn't done it on purpose. He'd just been intoxicated by Xinyan's scent, and that was why he'd blurted it out. But Lin Yi hadn't smelled Xinyan's scent in the classroom. What was going on? Could this smell be coming from? Lin Yi looked at Xinyan's chest with a weird expression on his face. There was a bra covering it earlier and now that it was gone, didn't that mean, "What are you looking at?" Xinyan jumped when she realized that Lin Yi was staring at her chest. She thought, is Lin Yi going to do something to me after hearing the sounds of the couple next door? Therefore she subconsciously dodged to the side but she lost her balance. Her whole body swayed and she almost fell into the gutter. Lin Yi was shocked. He quickly reached out and grabbed Xinyan's waist, pulling her back. The inertia brought Xinyan into Lin Yi's arms. Xinyan moaned, embarrassed. She tried to push Lin Yi away but she didn't realize it. Lin Yi didn't use any pure qi and he was feeling guilty in the first place. With Xinyan's push and pull they both fell into the gutter. But the moment they fell into the gutter, Lin Yi was afraid that Xinyan would fall, so he held her in his arms. Lin Yi, on the other hand, fell onto the stone floor of the gutter. It hadn't rained for a few days and there wasn't even a drop of water in the gutter. Lin Yi fell onto the stone floor with a dull thud. Xinyan screamed. She regretted it the moment she fell. Lin Yi wasn't that kind of person, was he? When Lin Yi fell onto the stone floor of the gutter while protecting her, Xinyan regretted it even more. She shouldn't have been so willful. She pressed down on Lin Yi and fell. How could Lin Yi recover? Even if his bones weren't broken, he'd be bruised all over, right? In actuality, Linny was completely fine. He'd covered himself in Xinyan with pure qi the moment they fell, and even if he didn't use it, his skin was thick enough to withstand the fall. He'd survived old Lin's flying kick to the foot of West Star Mountain all those years ago. But Bai Weitua rushed over just as the two fell into the gutter. "Big bro Lin? Boss?" He'd just received a notice that dinner was about to start, and he was supposed to gather the students at the cafeteria. But Lin Yi and Xinyan were nowhere to be seen, and so Bai Weitua ran to the back of the house to look for them. He was panicking when he saw Xinyan lying on top of Lin Yi, the two of them rolling around. I'm sorry, big brother Lin, sister-in-law Xinyan. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let's eat." Bai Weitua let out a sigh of relief when he saw that the two of them still had their clothes on. Obviously, the two of them had just started and hadn't reached the next step yet. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing to see the two of them naked? Still, Bai Weitua admired Linny quite a bit. He'd been served by Xinyan's mouth once in the car, and then he'd done it again when they were changing clothes. Now he was going to do it a third time. What a strong man. "Bai Weitua, we were just sitting here talking and your sis-in-law Xinyan?" Lin Yi awkwardly stood up with Xinyan in his arms, calling her Xinyan's sis-in-law in the back of his mouth. Chapter 1910. The man in the dream. Lin Yi felt quite helpless. Why did he keep making these kinds of stupid mistakes today? These were all kindergarten-level mistakes. He quickly changed his words when he saw the look on Xinyan's face. "You're the one who made me fall in, Xinyan. I was trying to pull her up but I fell in as well." Xinyan's eyes lit up as she looked at Xinyan. "Oh," Bai Weitua said with a look of understanding, but anyone could see that he didn't believe him at all. It was no wonder though. Lin Yi went to pull Xinyan up when she fell down, so why was Lin Yi on the bottom and Xinyan on top? It didn't make sense at all. But in reality, Lin Yi wasn't lying. It was the truth, but no one believed the truth these days. What's with that expression? Lin Yi was speechless. "It's nothing, Lin bro. It's nothing, it's just a normal thing." Bai Weitua didn't know why Lin Yi was being shy, but the guy didn't seem like the shy type at all. "Alright, lead the way." Lin Yi cut Bai Weitua off when he saw that Xinyan's face was about to bleed. "Let's go, the others are ready." Bai Weitua nodded and said nothing more. Xinyan bit her lips. She wanted to complain about Lin Yi, but realized that he'd done it out of kindness. She might have broken herself if he didn't save her. But thinking about it, she wouldn't have dodged if Lin Yi hadn't been staring at her breasts. She got pissed again at that thought. She stomped on Lin Yi's foot and snorted, ignoring Lin Yi as she followed Bai Weitua on her own. Lin Yi stared at Xinyan's back as she stepped on his foot, spacing out a little. It wasn't because of Xinyan's stomp, but because he seemed to remember that there was once a girl who looked at him with this kind of angry eyes before stomping on his foot and running away. Who was this person? Lin Yi frowned. It was just a fleeting feeling, but after thinking about it, he didn't think that there would be such a person. The Miss and Shu wouldn't do something like this, and Xiao Xiao was even more impossible. Who could it be? Could it be the person in my dream? Sometimes, when a person experienced something, they would have a feeling of déjà vu, as if they had experienced it in a dream or in a previous life. This was a very mysterious feeling. Many people had experienced it, but it could not be explained by science. They could only say that they had seen it in a dream. Could it be that he'd seen Wang Xinyan in his dreams? Dreamed of her stepping on him? Looking at the back of the figure walking away, unknowingly, it seemed to overlap with a certain scene in his memory. Perhaps it was really a dream? Lin Yi shook his head and quickly followed. The cafeteria here was huge, several times bigger than the cafeteria in Donghai Industry University. However, it didn't have as many sales windows as the cafeteria in Donghai Industry University. There was only a row of tables here, and on the left of the table were a few big buckets with 3 types of dishes: meat, vegetable, and soup. On the other side of the table were bowls of rice, steamed buns, and flower pots. Under the leadership of the class leaders, the students lined up, each holding a bowl and a bowl of soup. These were the daily necessities given to them during military training. Come here one by one later, there will be people to help you. Take the rice and other staples yourselves, but I hope you'll get into the habit of taking less and taking more. If you can't finish it when you take it back, if it's more than 1/10 of the plate, 1 point will be deducted. Be careful when you take the rice, don't fight over it, 2 points will be deducted if you spill it. A soldier in charge of the cafeteria explained the rules of eating to the students after they'd gotten into position. The students who'd planned on taking more food immediately gave up when they heard that they'd lose points for leftovers. The points of military training were counted into their credits, and if they didn't have enough credits, they'd have to take other electives in order to graduate. There were a lot of people in the cafeteria, but the soldiers were very orderly. It didn't take long for people to get their plates one by one, and it wasn't long before it was Lin Yi's turn. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan stood at the back of the line, the last to get food. The soldier had been serving the boys, and when it came to Wang Xinyan, he didn't see it clearly, so he gave her the boys' portion as well. Xinyan was about to ask him to take some back, but she realized that it wouldn't be appropriate to take it back now that she'd already scooped it up. There were students from other classes waiting behind them too, and so she braced herself and left with him. "You don't want the main course?" Lin Yi asked curiously, seeing that Xinyan only had a bowl of egg soup. "There's a lot of food already. If I add the main course, I'm afraid that there'll be leftovers." Xinyan frowned as she looked at the food on the plate. "What's fine?" Lin Yi picked up 2 rolls and put them on Xinyan's plate. "These rolls aren't bad. Eat some or you'll be hungry tonight." "Ah?" Xinyan was speechless. 1 roll was already a lot for her, and Lin Yi was giving her 2? "I'll eat the rest." Lin Yi was a big eater, and both Mengyao and Yushu knew that firsthand. But Lin Yi could eat as much as he wanted, and it didn't matter if he didn't eat at all. That was the benefit of being a practitioner. Xinyan blushed. Lin Yi eating her leftovers? Wouldn't that be an indirect kiss? But Lin Yi's expression was normal, and his eyes were clear. Xinyan knew that she was thinking too much. She nodded and found a table with Lin Yi. The two had just sat down when a commotion came from behind them. Lin Yi frowned. He heard a familiar voice in the commotion. It was Bai Weitua's voice. Lin Yi was too lazy to care about other people's business, but Lin Yi couldn't ignore this wretched brat who kept calling him Big Brother Lin. Lin Yi was such a person. Once he decided on a friend, he would take care of it till the end. It didn't matter if it was complicated or simple, whether it was meaningful or not, whether it was a waste of time or not. "Xinyan, wait for me here. Bai Weitua is arguing with someone." Lin Yi's expression was a little cold. "Oh, be careful," Xinyan said, realizing that she was overthinking things. With Lin Yi's strength, there was no way these students would be able to do anything to him. But, do I care about him? Wang Xinyan rarely cared about other people, especially a guy, but at this moment she did. It was from the bottom of her heart. Chapter 1911. 72815*= Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Lin Yi nodded and turned to walk towards the scene of the incident. There were already many people there, but Lin Yi was like a fish in water, quickly splitting the crowd and arriving at the center. "Fan Ganha, are you doing this on purpose? You knocked my steamed bun to the ground. Do you want me to deduct points?" Bai Weitua was so angry that his face turned red. This Fan Ganha was really too much of a bully. After bumping into him, not only did he not apologize, he even had a gloating look on his face. "I hit you. How am I supposed to hit you if you don't hit me? You can't even see where you're going, yet you're criticizing others?" Fan Ganha sneered. "Let me tell you, Bai Weitua, if we hadn't drunk together before, I would have sent you flying to the Pacific Ocean with my fist." "You." Bai Weitua's chest heaved up and down. This Fan Ganha was a gifted student. If they were to really fight, the one at a disadvantage would definitely be him, Bai Weitua. However, the steamed bun fell to the ground. Bai Weitua was unwilling to lose 2 points for no reason. "You can pick it up. If you pick it up and eat it, you won't have to deduct points." Zhang Duopan's voice sounded from the side. It seemed like he was speaking up for Bai Weitua, but wasn't it also insulting him? "Oh, that's right. You can pick it up and eat it. Then you won't have to deduct any points." Fan Ganha kicked the 2 steamed buns on the ground. The 2 steamed buns rolled on the ground at Bai Weitua's feet. The already dirty steamed buns became even dirtier. Bai Weitua wanted to smash the plate in his hand on Fan Ganha's face, but he knew that he couldn't do that. If he did, it wouldn't be as simple as a deduction of 2 points. It would be a violation of the rules, and he would definitely be sent back to school by the instructor. He might even lose his military training credits. What happened to us? Everyone knows that every grain of food on the plate is hard work. Don't waste it. We have to be diligent and thrifty. Fan Ganha looked at Bai Weitua mockingly. Last time at the KTV, Bai Weitua and Lin Yi made Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha lose face. Naturally, the two of them were unwilling to give up and wanted to find an opportunity to take revenge on Bai Weitua. After hearing about the food discipline, they knew that the opportunity had come. Bai Weitua took a deep breath. He was prepared to pick up the 2 steamed buns on the ground first. If he left them on the plate and didn't eat them, he would lose 1 point at most. If he threw them on the ground, he would lose 2 points. This was a matter of academic credits, so he was prepared to bear with it. However, just as Bai Weitua was about to bend down to pick up the 2 steamed buns on the ground, a hand beat him to it. The owner of this hand was Lin Yi. Lin Yi grabbed the 2 steamed buns from the ground and rubbed them against the soles of his shoes under the astonished gazes of the crowd before standing up. Zhang Duopan was baffled, Fan Ganhe was baffled, and even Bai Weitua was baffled. They didn't know what Lin Yi meant by this. Lin Yi narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganhe. He smiled slightly, then suddenly reached out and pinched Zhang Duopan's cheeks, and directly stood on top of it. If equals, Shuhai Pavilion, net the dirty steamed buns covered in dust and the mud from the soles of Lin Yi's shoes were stuffed into Zhang Duopan's mouth. Ugh. Ah. Zhang Duopan didn't expect Lin Yi to actually stuff the steamed bun into his mouth. He struggled with all his might to close his mouth, but Lin Yi's strength on his cheeks was too great. Zhang Duopan could only watch as Lin Yi stuffed the dirty steamed bun into his mouth. Who knows that every grain on a plate is hard work? Since you're so afraid of wasting food, then you can eat it. Lin Yi said expressionlessly. He didn't forget to pinch Zhang Duopan's throat and let the steamed bun enter his esophagus. Cough. Ugh. Zhang Duopan pinched his throat and coughed violently. The steamed bun was so stuck that he couldn't breathe and his face turned purple. Your mother, you don't want to live anymore, do you? Fan Ganhe was stunned by Lin Yi's actions. When Zhang Duopan coughed, he finally reacted. He pointed at Lin Yi and said angrily, "You're courting death." However, before he could finish, Lin Yi casually waved his hand and stuffed another dirty steamed bun into Fan Ganhe's mouth. His words also became ugh. Bai Weitua and the surrounding students stared blankly at Lin Yi. They didn't expect Lin Yi to be so ruthless. Only Yupanhu laughed coldly. It seemed that Lin Yi didn't dare to go too far. With Lin Yi's personality, he would have just killed anyone who messed with him. Why would he go through the trouble of teaching someone a lesson? In reality, Lin Yi wouldn't just randomly kill people in the school. It was Yupanhu who misunderstood. What's going on? What happened? A voice sounded. It was the head instructor, Chen Yutian. Naturally, someone went to inform head instructor Chen Yutian about the conflict. Cough cough. Wah. Zhang Duopan coughed again and finally spat out the dirty steamed bun. He almost choked to death. Fan Ganhe, on the other hand, dug out the steamed bun with his fingers for a long time before throwing it away. He was panting heavily. Bai Weitua's face paled when he saw how big the situation was. He didn't expect things to escalate to this extent. Although he was grateful for Lin Yi's help, he was also worried that he'd implicated Lin Yi. He was only supposed to get his points deducted, but now Lin Yi was in trouble. Instructor Chen, these 2 people were too greedy. They choked and vomited. Lin Yi pointed at Fan Ganhe and Zhang Duopan. Looks like they're wasting food. Shouldn't we deduct their points? Everyone at the scene was flabbergasted. Lin Yi was lying through his teeth. Wasting food. Deduct 2 points from these 2. Chen Yuqian glanced at Fan Ganhe and Zhang Duopan and said faintly, "Wah." Zhang Duopan panicked. He didn't expect to get his points deducted. Head instructor, it's him. He forced the steamed bun into my mouth. Oh, why did he force it into your mouth? Chen Yuqian asked. Zhang Duopan didn't know what to say. He was the one who made Fan Ganhe do that, so he couldn't explain himself. But since Chen Yuqian asked, he could only force himself to say, because these 2 steamed buns fell on the ground. It was him, Bai Weitua, who dropped them. We came to persuade him not to waste food, but this Lin Yi picked them up and stuffed them into our mouths. Tisk? Zhang Duopan's words attracted a wave of disgust from the students. They'd seen everything with their own eyes after all, and if they were to say that Lin Yi was lying through his teeth, then these 2 were twisting the facts to make a deer out of a horse. Oh, how did you persuade him? Chen Yuqian continued. Target equals underscore blank. It was 6 o'clock sharp and they were all in front of their barracks. After the medicine class, Chen Yuqian appeared in front of everyone very quickly. Reporting instructor. I am the class monitor Bai Weitua. Please instruct me. Bai Weitua stepped out. Very good, Bai Weitua is back. Chen Yuqian nodded, satisfied. Tomorrow will be the start of your official military training. The 1st to 3rd days will be marching, and formation training. The 4th to 6th days will be military boxing training, and the 7th to 8th days will be field training. After the 8th day there will be formation, military boxing, and kickboxing. The winning class and individual will be rewarded with 5 to 10 credits. No one expected that other than the normal credits, there would be bonus credits as well. It was quite a lot too, from 5 to 10. Don't be too happy yet. Only the top 3 of each competition will be rewarded, whether it's a group or individual. Chen Yutian said faintly. The field training is based on faculties, but the first 3 groups to return from each class will be rewarded with 2 credits each. College credits were both difficult and easy to obtain. Many elective courses such as etiquette, social interaction, and so on were easy to obtain. However, sometimes, one would still lack some credits before graduation. It would be difficult to take those courses that one had not taken before, especially for students who chose double majors. Credits were even more important. So, if they could get more credits at this time, no one would complain about it. After Chen Yutian finished his lecture, he led the students to do a few simple movements in front of the barracks. For example, at ease, attention, turn left, turn right, and so on. These were all things they learned in middle school, so it wasn't hard at all. It was just a warm-up. Then, Chen Yutian led the students to jog a few rounds around the barracks before dismissing them. The first day's training wasn't much, but it was still too much for the students to handle. They collapsed on their beds after returning to the barracks. Right Pan Hu, yellow hair and purple hair, were on the other side of the bed. These 3 were the oddballs, and it was obvious that they weren't easy to get along with. The students in the class didn't provoke them, and they didn't want to talk to anyone either. On the other side of the bed, if equals, Book C Pavilion, on the other side were Lin Yi and Xinyan. Xinyan was lying quietly beside Lin Yi. She was wearing clothes, but she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Rest early, we have to wake up at 6 tomorrow morning. Lin Yi said after looking at the time. Yeah. Xinyan snuck a peek at the calm Lin Yi, feeling a little nervous. This was the first time she'd shared a bed with a boy. She was wearing clothes and it was military training too, but Xinyan couldn't help but feel a little nervous. It was fine when the lights were on, but now that the power was off, she was a little nervous. What are you thinking about, eyes wide open? Lin Yi asked with a smile. Xinyan still hadn't rested after a while. You can see me? Xinyan was a little surprised. There was no light in the barracks at night, and it was pitch black outside the window. Only the faint moonlight shone in from a window not far away, but it was very weak. She couldn't see what was going on in the barracks. Your eyes are so bright, I can see you. Lin Yi couldn't help but tease. Xinyan pursed her lips, not knowing what to say. After a while she harumphed. Nonsense, I'm not a wolf. Go to sleep. Lin Yi said before closing his eyes. Xinyan waited for a while, and seeing that Lin Yi wasn't talking anymore, she fell asleep as well. Late autumn nights were very cold. Everyone was wearing thick camouflage clothing, but there were no blankets. It was still a little chilly. Target equals undersir blank. Chapter 1913. Date: October 11th. Xinyan was only wearing a tank top under her camouflage fatigue. It was only natural for her to feel cold, and so she subconsciously searched for warmth, burrowing into Lin Yi's arms. It was very warm here. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the sleeping Wang Xinyan in his arms out of nowhere. Lin Yi hadn't slept at all. He'd closed his eyes to train in the Jade Space. Ever since he'd learned the secrets of the Jade Space, Lin Yi hadn't slept at all. His perception of the outside world was still very strong, and so when Xinyan ran into his arms, Lin Yi sensed it immediately. Lin Yi shook his head and came out of the Jade Space. He wanted to push Xinyan away, but he didn't want to let her go. Hugging Xinyan gave him a peace of mind, and Lin Yi couldn't help but fall into a trance as he took in the faint scent of Xinyan's body. The scent made Lin Yi very comfortable, and so Lin Yi couldn't help but sniff a few more times. All of a sudden he felt a heat in his abdomen and Lin Yi jumped in fright. Did he have some sort of feelings for Xinyan? If that were the case, it'd be very awkward if Xinyan found out. At that thought, Lin Yi hurriedly channeled the second stage of the art of dragon mastery, trying to dispel the fire in his body. But as soon as Lin Yi's chi touched the fire in his abdomen, Lin Yi was confused. This wasn't that kind of fire. Lin Yi could tell if it was because of him, but if that wasn't the case, then could this heat be because of Xinyan's fragrance? But no matter what the reason was, Lin Yi didn't dare to delay, and had already started to use his pure qi to dissolve that ball of fire. But in the next moment, Lin Yi was surprised to find that after the ball of fire was dissolved, it seemed to have become pure qi that filled his body, and his strength was also continuously increasing. After the ball of fire was dissolved, Lin Yi's strength actually had an obvious increase. Although he still hadn't reached the barrier of Earth-class early phase peak in Chapter 1925, he was getting closer and closer to that barrier. Lin Yi was very puzzled. Why was his strength increasing? Moreover, this speed was clearly faster than just channeling the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. It wasn't by much, but it was fast. Lin Yi could feel it. Perhaps it really was because of the fragrance on Xinyan's body? Lin Yi frowned, secretly surprised. But since he found such a good opportunity, he didn't want to waste it. It wasn't easy to get a chance to share a bed with Xinyan. Of course he'd want to absorb more of this fragrance to train. Otherwise, Xinyan might not agree to it when he got back to school. Lin Yi didn't sleep that night, and his body kept channeling the art of dragon mastery until dawn. Xinyan was a bit cold in the middle of the night, and naturally went to find warmth. She opened her eyes in the morning to find herself in Lin Yi's arms. She was a bit surprised, but then she saw that Lin Yi wasn't hugging her, but she was hugging Lin Yi. Xinyan was relieved but also embarrassed. Lin Yi didn't do anything to her, but she threw herself into his arms. How shameless. If Lin Yi saw this, what would Lin Yi think? With that thought, Xinyan tried to get out of Lin Yi's arms. She sneaked a glance at Lin Yi and realized that Lin Yi's eyes were closed. She quickly moved her body inwards, but Lin Yi felt it. Lin Yi hadn't slept at all. He'd been training the whole time, and so he spoke subconsciously. Xinyan, you're awake? Xinyan didn't expect Lin Yi to wake up earlier than her. Was Lin Yi pretending to be asleep with his eyes closed? This guy was trying to take advantage of her when he was awake. No. Xinyan suddenly remembered that if Lin Yi wanted to take advantage of her, he could have just hugged her. Why did he have to do this? Xinyan understood after a bit of thought. Lin Yi probably didn't want to disturb her, seeing that she was sleeping soundly. Even so, Xinyan still felt embarrassed. I was a bit cold last night. It's fine, I don't mind being a heater. Lin Yi really didn't mind. Lin Yi had a good impression of Xinyan in the first place, and now that Xinyan's scent was good for his training, Lin Yi didn't mind at all. In fact, he liked it. I'm up. Xinyan quickly got out of bed, seeing that the conversation was getting more and more intimate. In fact, there were a lot of students who woke up at this time, but it was still early. There was still some time before 6, so they wanted to rest a bit more. Xinyan went to the washroom to wash her face, and Lin Yi got up as well. Bai Weidua saw that someone was up, and he, as the class monitor, couldn't stay in bed. But since Lin Yi and Xinyan were the first to wake up, Bai Weidua didn't find it embarrassing at all. Woo woo woo, a loud wake-up call sounded. It was 5:50 and they were ready. All the students in the barracks ran out and lined up in front of the barracks. Chen Yuqian showed up at 6 sharp, and the day's training began. The training for the first 3 days was simple. It was what they had practiced in middle and high school: marching, changing lines and so on. Although it was tiring, they could still persist. No more unpleasantness happened in the cafeteria. With Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha as an example, no one dared to cause any more trouble. As for how Chen Yuqian handled the two, other than Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha, who were a little dissatisfied, the others didn't think that Chen Yuqian was unfair. Although Lin Yi was a little harsh, he was still standing up for his classmate. In everyone's eyes, it was an act of brotherhood. Since they weren't punished, it meant that Chen Yuqian was an open-minded instructor. In fact, if it weren't for Lin Yi, Chen Yuqian would have punished them as well. But since it was related to Lin Yi, he was biased. What made Lin Yi disappointed was that he didn't see Mingyao and Yushu in the cafeteria. Book C Pavilion. This wasn't the only cafeteria. Perhaps the students from the economics faculty were sent to other cafeterias, and they didn't meet. This kind of intense training was nothing to Lin Yi. What made Lin Yi the happiest was sleeping with Wang Xinyan every night. It wasn't that Lin Yi was lustful, but the fragrance on Wang Xinyan's body could speed up Lin Yi's training. 3 days. 3 days of training was equivalent to half a month of training for Lin Yi. Chapter 1914. Although Lin Yi's mastery of the second stage of the art of dragon mastery was partly due to this, Wang Xinyan's scent played an important role. Although Wang Xinyan would hug Lin Yi every morning, it was a little awkward, but as time went by the awkwardness faded away. Now Wang Xinyan wasn't as shy as before because Lin Yi didn't take advantage of her, and she didn't do it on purpose. There was no need for the two of them to be awkward. Just like what Lin Yi said, the two of them were good friends. From the fourth day onwards it was military boxing. Military boxing. Most of the students had heard of this name, but they had never practiced it. After all, there were Muay Thai, Sanda, Taekwondo and even Tai Chi in the martial arts training classes, but there were very few that taught military boxing. They were curious about this boxing technique that everyone in the military practiced. Only Yu Coiling Tiger had a disdainful smile on his face. Military boxing, although it sounds ordinary, is a boxing technique that every soldier in the army knows. Many people think that it's only for strengthening their bodies. Chen Yuqian paused for a moment before continuing. Military boxing can strengthen your body, but it's also a very practical fighting style. It's very effective when you're fighting with your enemies in close combat. Not to mention normal soldiers, even the special forces might use military boxing when fighting against enemies. So, if you practice military boxing well, it will guarantee your safety in the future. If you can use military boxing well when you meet an enemy, you won't have a problem protecting yourself, even if you can't kill the bad guys. These words made the students present look forward to it. Yes, if they could learn this fist technique well, wouldn't they not be taken advantage of by the bad guys when they encounter danger in the future? Even Lin Yi nodded in agreement. Military boxing was a set of martial arts that had been tempered by countless elite soldiers. Chen Yuqian wasn't exaggerating at all. Ha-dashed at this moment, someone laughed untimely as if he was very disdainful of Chen Yuqian's words. Who laughed just now? Is there anything wrong? Chen Yuqian's face darkened. He didn't expect such a student to exist. Sir, I've seen him before. There's someone in our class who's very strong as well. Your military boxing might not be his match. The one who spoke was the blonde, Tiger Right's follower, the one Lin Yi had taught a lesson to. Previously, when Pan Huyu saw Lin Yi's actions in the cafeteria, he guessed that Lin Yi did not dare to cause trouble on campus, so he began to carry out his plan. He had Huang Mao create some trouble for Lin Yi to disgust Lin Yi. It would be best if Lin Yi could deduct some credit so that he could suffer in silence. This was the highest level of pranking people. Oh? Who are you talking about? Chen Yuqian frowned as he looked at the blonde's hair color. A trace of disgust flashed through his eyes. This guy was probably a gangster, doing whatever he wanted in school just because his family was rich. However, this was the military, not a school. Naturally, Chen Yuqian wouldn't let him do whatever he wanted. It's Lin Yi, he's a martial arts master. Huang Mao pointed at Lin Yi's direction. Oh, how do you know he's a martial arts master? Are you one too? Chen Yuqian asked. Huh. Huang Mao didn't expect Chen Yuqian to point his spear at him. He was caught off guard. Right Coiling Tiger furrowed his brows. He had been feeling proud of his plan. After all, now that he'd said that, it would be difficult for Lin Yi to decide whether to accept the challenge or not. From Tiger Right's point of view, it would be easy for Lin Yi to defeat this instructor with his strength, but if he defeated the instructor, wouldn't he lose face? Would Lin Yi be able to do well in the military training in the future? Even if the instructor didn't hold a grudge against Lin Yi would still be reprimanded by the school when he returned. But if Lin Yi admitted defeat on purpose, with his strength that could even defeat an Earth-class master, wouldn't it be a very frustrating thing to admit defeat to a normal instructor? If he didn't accept the challenge, Lin Yi would be disobeying orders. Disobeying orders in military training would also result in points deduction. However, Tiger Right didn't expect that the conflict would be shifted back to the blonde. I'm asking you a question. How do you know that Lin Yi is a master? Chen Yuqian yelled at the blonde. The blonde didn't know how to explain. Since you know that he's a master, then I see that you're a master as well. Come, fight me and show us military boxing. Chen Yuqian knew that the blonde didn't have any good intentions. He wanted to teach him a lesson so that he wouldn't stop. Even if the blonde wasn't against Lin Yi, Chen Yuqian didn't have a good impression of him with his gangster outfit. Meh. Even if he could not graduate, it did not matter. He was just a guest in the Yu family. His education was of no use to him. Hence, the yellow hair chuckled. I can go, but instructor, let's make this clear first. What if I win your military boxing? The yellow hair man was slightly stunned, but he was not afraid. He was here to accompany his young master to study. Yu Coiling Tiger cared about credits, but the yellow hair did not care. Even if he could not graduate, it did not matter. When? What do you say? Chen Yuqian didn't expect the blonde to dare to raise a condition. He focused his eyes and wanted to see where the blonde got his confidence from. Unfortunately, Chen Yuqian didn't have the foresight that Lin Yi had. Internal martial arts experts would only reveal their true strength when they were circulating their innate qi. If they did not deliberately reveal their true strength, then they would only reveal their true strength in battle or when they were using Qigong movement techniques. Physical masters didn't have true energy in their body. They could only use their strong physique to activate the true energy in nature. Therefore, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to see their true strength if they didn't make a move. If I win, the three of us won't participate in the military training anymore. But you have to give us full marks for the military training, and you have to give us bonus points as well. The blonde pointed at him, tiger right and purple hair. Fine. Although it's against the rules, I'll still agree to it. Since you can't beat me, I'll show you what military boxing is. Chen Yuqian laughed coldly. Hey, remember what you said? The blonde laughed and started to activate his incantation. In an instant, the strength of the early phase of the mystic class was revealed. Chen Yuqian's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect a gangster to be a master of the early phase of the mystic class. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1915. Of course, Chen Yuqian didn't put him in his eyes. He was a master at the peak of the late phase of the mystic class, and his strength had been stabilized. Why would he be afraid of the yellow hair? Attack me, you can use all kinds of moves. I'll only use military boxing. Chen Yuqian pretended not to see the yellow hair's strength and said indifferently. The yellow hair sneered in his heart. Pretending? It seems like you don't even know what a cultivator is, and you want to beat me with military boxing? Even if you practice military boxing to the extreme, you're still a normal person. The difference between you and a cultivator is like heaven and earth. Remember what you said? The yellow hair didn't say much and swung his fist. Of course, he was afraid that he would kill Chen Yuqian with one punch, so he only used the strength of the early phase of the golden class to teach Chen Yuqian a lesson. Bang! The blonde's fist landed on Chen Yuqian's arm, and Chen Yuqian's move was a defensive move in the military boxing. The yellow hair thought that even if he couldn't break Chen Yuqian's arm, he would at least send him flying. However, Chen Yuqian didn't move an inch, and the yellow hair retreated a few steps under Chen Yuqian's defense, falling on his butt. Ha! Seeing the yellow-haired guy sitting on the ground, all the students present burst into laughter. This guy was so arrogant at the beginning. He even wanted the instructor to exempt them from military training. Not only that, he even wanted extra points. Who did he think he was? Chen Yuqian didn't want to hurt the yellow hair, so he controlled his strength to the peak of the early phase of the mystic class, suppressing the yellow hair. One had to know that the difference between an earth class and an earth class was one level, and they could kill their opponent. So Chen Yuqian only used military boxing to defend and didn't attack the yellow hair, wanting him to back off. But the yellow hair was too careless. If he used his full strength, he wouldn't fall on his butt like this, even if he couldn't do anything to Chen Yuqian. Peak of the early phase of the mystic class. The yellow hair looked at Chen Yuqian in disbelief. Since when were there so many cultivators? One had to know that he was from a hidden house, and that was why he had the strength of a mystic class. Chen Yuqian was just a military instructor, and yet he was stronger than him? Right, coiling tiger and purple hair were practitioners as well. They couldn't see through Chen Yuqian's strength before, and they'd be idiots if they still couldn't. Right, coiling tiger's face changed. Yellow hair, come back. Purple hair, you go. Yes. The purple-haired man nodded. He was a mid-phase mystic class master, a head above Chen Yuqian, so he agreed without hesitation. I didn't expect Instructor Chen to be a master. Since that's the case, I'll take 2 of your attacks for my brother. Purple hair stood up and said to Chen Yuqian indifferently. Oh, since you're here, then come. Look carefully. If you meet these little hoodlums in the future, be like me, and you won't be bullied by them. Chen Yuqian used these 2 as examples to explain to the students. The purple-haired man was pissed. He was a mid-phase mystic class master, not a hoodlum. But this wasn't the time to talk, and Chen Yuqian didn't point out his name. The purple-haired man could only hold it in for now. He'd defeat Chen Yuqian later, and that would be the best way to retaliate. Haha, yes, Instructor Chen. We're watching carefully. The student said. Peak of the early phase mystic class, is that strong? The purple-haired man sneered at Qin Yutian. He activated his internal arts, revealing his strength as a mid-phase mystic class master. Come, continue to attack me. Qin Yutian glanced at the purple-haired man, and he was even more shocked. There was a mid-phase mystic class? What kind of class was this? There were hidden dragons and crouching tigers. But compared to an Earth-class master like Lin Yi, these people were too weak. Huh. The purple-haired man froze. This Qin Yutian was only at the peak of the early-phase mystic class, but he wasn't afraid of him, a mid-phase mystic class master, and even asked him to attack him. Was he an idiot? A high-level master attacking an Earth-class master, wasn't that a one-sided attack? Hurry up, don't waste everyone's time. Qin Yutian looked at the purple-haired man impatiently. Umph. The purple-haired man was pissed. He snorted coldly and kicked towards Qin Yutian. Since Qin Yutian was a master at the peak of the early-phase mystic class, the purple-haired man didn't need to hold back anymore. He would use his full strength and injure Qin Yutian. He was at the peak of the early-phase mystic class anyways and he wouldn't die. The purple-haired man wanted Qin Yutian to suffer in silence. He was the one who asked him to attack. Even if he injured Qin Yutian, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. He was the one who agreed to the conditions of winning. However, when the purple-haired man kicked, Qin Yutian also used a military boxing to win. But what shocked the purple-haired man was that Qin Yutian wasn't a master at the peak of the early-phase mystic class, he was clearly at the peak of the late-phase mystic class. The purple-haired man regretted it, but it was too late. The moment his foot touched Qin Yutian's fist, he flew backwards. The distance he flew was much further than the yellow-haired man. He flew to the edge of the training ground and landed heavily on the ground, screaming in pain. Ouch! This was the result of Qin Yutian holding back. Otherwise, with Qin Yutian's strength, killing the purple-haired man was as easy as playing with a toy. Wah! The students at the scene immediately gasped in surprise, followed by thunderous applause. Qin Yutian's move was too cool. It looked like an ordinary move, but it had such power. It was like a stunt scene in a martial arts movie. A normal person's punch could only knock someone down, but this kind of punch could send someone flying so far away. Ordinary people couldn't even see it, it was something that could only be seen in movies. Qin Yutian's punch could only be seen in movies. But now it happened in front of everyone's eyes. It turned out that those scenes in the movie were not a lie to attract attention, but in fact, there really was such a powerful person who could do it. Yellow hair, purple hair, right coiling tiger, you've violated the rules. Run 100 laps around the barracks or you can't have lunch. Qin Yutian glanced at right coiling tiger. He knew that these three were in cahoots. Since the yellow-haired man and the purple-haired man weren't ordinary people, this right coiling tiger was probably a practitioner as well. Running 100 laps wasn't a big deal. Yes, the yellow-haired man, the purple-haired man and right coiling tiger were furious, but they didn't dare to act rashly. This instructor was actually a master at the peak of the late-phase mystic class. In front of such a master they couldn't fight back. Seeing the three running laps, the students at the scene burst into laughter. Target equals _blank. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.